What's up, San Diego? How's it going to everybody out there? Happy Monday to all of you. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all that celebrates on this March 17th, 2025. Good to be talking with all of you. Got a lot of great things to talk about today in terms of San Diego FC, the local colleges in town accomplishing a lot over the weekend and punching their tickets to the NCAA Tournament. And now we got some breaking Padres news.
This is breaking news from 97.3 The Fan.
Mike Shildt met with the media today, just moments ago, and has announced that Michael King will start on opening day for the Padres against the Atlanta Braves. Michael King getting the opening day start against Atlanta. A very interesting move for the San Diego Padres, considering that you got a lot of players on this team or pitchers on this team that are ace-like pitchers. I think a lot of people thought Dylan Cease was going to be the opening day starter. I thought Dylan Cease was going to be the opening day starter, and the San Diego Padres go with Michael King. So there's some Padres news for you. They announced it a little bit earlier than we usually see out of the San Diego Padres, but with March 27th just around the corner and 10 days away, opening day 10 days away, we got our opening day starter for the San Diego Padres, and it's Michael King. King will start against the Atlanta Braves on that Thursday, and then who knows how the rest of the rotation will play out. I'm assuming, and I think that it's probably going to be Dylan Cease game 2, which sets up Yu Darvish potentially game 3, Nick Pivetta game 4, in that opening 4-game series against the Atlanta Braves. If I'm not mistaken, I think Sunday Night Baseball is that Sunday against Atlanta. So it might be Nick Pivetta, and then whoever your fifth spot in the rotation is, which we got some more information on that over the weekend, would be the game 1 starter against San Francisco on March 30th on that Monday. So Michael King is the opening day starter. You could go a lot of different directions with this. I think Michael King has earned the opportunity to be the opening day starter. I think last year, the way that he finished the season and really was your best starting pitcher come postseason time, I think plays a little bit of a factor into being the opening day starter. I think that's a big notch in his cap. I think maybe a little bit of a reward for the San Diego Padres to Michael King in terms of being cool with the negotiations, not going to arbitration, finding a deal that was very beneficial to both parties in this particular case. Maybe that's a big factor in this. Is there a consideration where maybe the Padres, might be willing to trade Dylan Cease? I don't think that is as big of a case or a big of a story. We talked about that last week. I said, if the right deal comes about, I think you could pull the trigger on a Dylan Cease trade. I don't necessarily know I'd be actively looking to trade Dylan Cease, but I'd be listening. There's a lot of desperate teams out there that need starting pitching and need front-end starting pitching. And desperate teams with injuries that are supposed to be competing in baseball in the playoffs this season need starting pitching. So maybe you listen a little bit. But right now, I like the move to have Michael King as the opening day starter. I'm going to say right now, I'm a little shocked. I didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought it was going to be, here we go. We heard about some rumblings over the weekend that Mike Shildt was going to make the decision and, let's just pick the main guy, right? It wasn't, I don't think it was going to be Paul Skeens-ish. Did you guys see that video where they brought in Paul Skeens? Almost like they were pulling him up to the big leagues to surprise him that he was the opening day starter. And the question was, who else was going to start for us? Are you seriously? This one is a little bit more surprising, though. I think it's good for Michael King. I think, what he has done for this Padres organization just in 1 year, I think he deserves an opening day start. I think, there's kind of a lot of rewarding sense to that. I think you could have gone either way with Dylan Cease or Michael King. But now the question is, can you really look into this a little bit further? Is this a sense of telling Michael King and announcing that Michael King is the Padres guy? Because your top two pitchers are under contract for 1 year. I mean, they're done at the end of the year in reality. And they have a walk year. So maybe the Padres view Michael King as the guy that they want to keep here in the organization. And by giving him that opening day start, really announcing, Michael, you're our guy. And we're going to stick with you, and we're going to give you this opportunity to be the opening day starter. We're going to use Dylan Cease throughout the rest of the season, obviously, and have, try to see where we're at in terms of playoff positioning. But Michael King, we're not letting you leave. This is our sign of gratitude to show you that, we're locked into potentially having Michael King on our team for years to come. Michael King announced as the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres. Let me know what you guys think. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Should have been King, should have been Dylan C, should have been somebody else. How much do you value the opening day starter in Major League Baseball? I mean, there's a lot of time in the season where you're going to get off days, you can mix it up and everything like that. It's not going to be the rotation for the entire year. I know it really sets up like you would want to be in this particular spot. It's not very much matchup based in that first weekend against Atlanta where you're trying to finagle your rotation, maybe for the next couple of games or so. What do you think? Who's the opening day starter? Who did you want to be the opening day starter? I thought it was going to be Dylan Cease. I'm actually fired up that it's Michael King. I like watching King pitch. I'd love to see what he does in his second year as a starting pitcher. He really flashed a lot last year for the San Diego Padres. But we're 10 days out from opening day, and Mike Schilt goes with Michael King. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Some great breaking news to start the day. That's why you tune into the flagship station each and every day, all day long from 6 a.m. to 6 p. Because we got you covered on everything Padres all the time. And a place where you could talk about Padres baseball. Again, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. People weighing in on the chat on YouTube. Zach, I'm stoked for Michael King. I think he sets the precedent for the rotation. He's my pick for number one for sure. Wiffle ball he throws is nasty, and he's a fiery competitor. I like that. I agree. So Michael King becomes the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres to set up the rotation. I think it probably goes Dylan Cease game 2. I think you go with Yu Darvish game 3, Nick Pivetta game 4. I mean, any order of those 4, you're in good shape. You got good starting pitching for the Padres. And then you got the battle for the 5th spot, which we're going to get into later on. Kyle Hart might have not had the results that you would want to see. But to be honest, he went out there and did a really good job. It's about the process, not necessarily the results a lot of times in spring training. And we had a lot of different news come out from Kevin Acee this weekend and AJ Cassaville and Dennis Lin in Padres camp about some roster moves. Some players that are expected to make the team, if not already a foregone conclusion they're making the team. And one of them very surprising. About giving a certain veteran the benefit of the doubt for spring training because of his career numbers, even though he's up there in age. Which really sets a interesting decision the Padres are going to have to make when it comes to certain players that are now out of options and have nowhere else to go. Guys like Eggy Rosario. Tirso Ornelas and Connor Joe have options left. But big discussion point, Jason Hayward's going to be the starting left fielder for the Padres more likely than not, according to the latest article by Kevin Acee. Expect Jose Iglesias to make this team. That's not a big shock. And then you look, I think Gavin Sheets, he had another bomb over the weekend. That guy's hit his way onto the team. You can't not have that guy on the team. I thought Ben Higgins brought up a good point the other day when talking about home runs, and it goes with one of the clips that I put out on social media, which you can follow me at B_SURP at BSURP. But when you look at what Gavin Sheets can bring, in terms of his power, he might be able to offset the lack of power from Luis Ariz, who hit a bomb over the weekend too. Low line drive, hitting the ball hard. It's got to go over the fence every once in a while. You don't need to have the launch angle to hit home runs in big league baseball. Line drive will do the job. But we talked about it last week with Ariz and Sheets in terms of splitting the home runs to maybe get to 30 home runs for a first baseman for the Padres. That's something that the Padres haven't had in a long time. And I know you have to count on a lot of home runs from Gavin Sheets, but like I said, Ben Higgins brought up a good point. More consistent playing is going to lead to more consistent numbers and opportunities for Gavin Sheets to hit the long ball. I think that's a huge factor. And so if you got Ariz DHing and moving around, if you got Sheets filling in at first base and a player that can play a lot of different positions, he's going to have ample of opportunity to potentially hit that home run mark. If you're just tuning in, the breaking news that we got from Mike Schilt and the Padres organization is that Michael King is the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres. What do you guys think about that? 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. So much more we got to talk about on the day. We got NCAA Tournament. Congratulations to the 2 of the 3 Division I schools in town. Both men, both women make the NCAA Tournament. Shout out to Point Loma Nazarene for making the tournament that has already started in D2. What a great performance out of local colleges here in San Diego. San Diego FC got a 1-1 draw after falling down 1-0. And there's one other thing that I want to talk about later on in the show. There are some things that the Padres are doing that I absolutely love that I think is going to benefit the culture of the Padres and put them on the right trajectory in the future. We're going to talk about that later in the show, but more Michael King, opening day starter talk, 5th starter talk, Padres talk, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, just getting started on a Monday morning on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Fired up on a Monday morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there. Got some energy today on a Monday. I didn't think I was going to have the energy because my weekend was spent working the entire time. I had to do 3 games over the weekend. But as I told Adam, I'm using this now to apply, and maybe we should use it a little bit more, a little bit of positivity to change your life a little bit as one of an opportunity for me all the time is being able to work with the University of San Diego and their baseball team. Their head coach always tells his team, every time you say have to, change it to get to. So I get to do 3 baseball games over the weekend for USD baseball. I got to do that as it's in the past tense. And Friday, game got rained out. So we played a game Saturday and then doubleheader yesterday. The doubleheader yesterday was 2 4-hour games in which I called the game by myself for both 4 hours. So 8 hours straight of baseball talking. So I didn't know how I was going to hold up today, but I got to do that yesterday. It's a great opportunity to get call another ball game. As Chris Ellis says it too, any day you have a day to call a ball game is a great day. Always cherish it every time you can. So got to do that over the weekend. Doesn't mean I wasn't tired. Maybe this morning. Got a workout in, feel good. And we're ready to talk about Padres baseball. We're 10 days away from opening day. 10 days away from opening day. Starting to feel it now. I mean, who cares about the Padres record in spring training? I know people are upset about that. I saw the audacity out of some people to be upset that Manny brought the starters, basically the starters, and Adrian Marjon, to San Diego on a private jet to watch San Diego FC, going like, oh, they should focus on baseball with the way the record is in spring training. Are you good, dude? Give me a break. Spring training. I actually love what they did. And I'm going to talk more about that later on in the 12 o'clock hour. Not just that team building kind of situation, but some other things that happened this weekend from the veterans that are really going to turn this franchise in the direction they need to be. They're putting in the building blocks, which we talked about in the middays for the last 3 or 4 years about how the Padres need to establish a culture and build off of that culture. And we'll talk about that in the noon hour. But if you're just tuning in, Padres have announced their opening day starter. Sam Levitt's out there working his ass off, getting some sound and everything like that. We're going to pass that along your way once we get everything cut up and sent out. And I was going to get to the phones to Richard and Hillcrest. Richard, if you just hung up, please call back. I was about to get to you. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talking about Mike Shilt's announcement that Michael King will be the opening day starter. So excited for that. I mean, this week of sports is going to be great in town. San Diego State makes the NCAA tournament. They're able to sneak into that Final Four spot, that first 4, if you will. They'll be playing tomorrow. They got a game tomorrow. They got to handle North Carolina. And I got some stuff built up on the tournament field that we're going to talk about in the next segment, especially with North Carolina. But I don't know how that team made the NCAA tournament. Now, that being said, San Diego State needs to win. I mean, they got to go out there and beat North Carolina. But if you start looking at their metrics, it's just not good. It's not good. And the question I have, I mean, they want to expand this tournament and all this other stuff. But I look at their metrics. Why do we even count quad 1 wins at this point in time? Why do we do that? I mean, we obviously don't care if you win the games. North Carolina made the NCAA tournament, and their resume was just not great. On the final day of selection committee voting, this is what the committee saw on North Carolina's resume. No elite wins, no wins versus a protected seed, 0-10 versus quad 1A, which is like the upper echelon of quad 1, 1-12 versus quad 1, 1-10 versus at-large field, 0-8 versus the net top 20, 1-10 versus the net top 40, 0-5 versus ACC's 3 tournament teams, 2-7 versus the top 7 in the ACC with wins at home versus SMU and a neutral win against Wake Forest, plus a home quad 3 loss. 8 games versus the net top 20 is a lot. There's tough games, but the tournament team is expected to win at least 1 or 2 of those. UNC whiffed on all of them. You shouldn't be into the tournament because you got on the bus. I mean, it's just a joke. And then you find out the athletic director or whoever it is for North Carolina, he's on the committee. Oh, well, I walked out of the room when they talked about my Tar Heels. Okay, dude, sick. Okay. I'm sure that was a huge time. Hey, man, don't tell Dave. We don't really like his team. This committee has spent hours and hours and hours of time with this guy throughout the weekend. Hours. For the last couple of weekends. You're just going to be like, hey, walk out of the room. Go get I know you're getting the pizza for everybody, but like, oh man, this guy can't put North Carolina in. Aside from the fact, too, that our guy from North Carolina got a monthly paycheck, which is over $100,000. The guy makes over $1 million as the athletic director of North Carolina. He got an additional 1 month salary for North Carolina making the NCAA tournament. Guy made an extra $100,000 yesterday with UNC making the tournament over West Virginia, who had 6 quad one wins. West Virginia had 6 quad one wins. Out. North Carolina, 1. Oh, you're in. 1-12 in quad one game. Why do we even care about the metrics if you just got to play it? You think that would work for like a team like UC Irvine? Like Irvine got left out of the tournament, right? They didn't have enough. They lost in the championship game to the Big West champion UC San Diego. Do you think if Irvine, first of all, nobody would schedule them because they're too good of a team and not enough metric-wise to get any of these Power 5 schools to play them. But if Irvine scheduled all non-conference games, like 15 non-conference games against only Power 4 quad 1 type opponents, and they didn't win a single game, they only won 1, are they making the NCAA tournament? The answer is no, of course not. And then Jay Wright had the audacity to say on the selection show yesterday, the ratings for that game is going to be great because it's North Carolina. Are you kidding me? That might be the case. Keep that to yourself. Shut up on the ratings thing. All you're doing is tainting this tournament even more than it already is with some of the BS of the selection committee of leaving out mid-majors that are probably good enough to be in the tournament and allowing mediocre power conference teams into the NCAA tournament. I mean, totally ridiculous. Why even play the games? If that's the case, well, North Carolina's ratings are going to be great. I mean, we're talking about a team that lost to Duke by 20 points twice and then played Duke in the tournament, the ACC tournament. Duke didn't even have Cooper Flagg, the best player in the country, and North Carolina still couldn't beat Duke. And we think that's a tournament team? Unbelievable. West Virginia got hosed in that particular deal. North Carolina shouldn't have been in. Same thing with like Texas. I think Texas went 6-12 in conference play in the SEC, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they did better. I think Oklahoma went 6-12 in conference play in the SEC. Look, I know the SEC is really good this year. They got in fact, I would even say that SEC basketball this year is better than what we think their football conference is. But even with that, you got to go at least 500. I mean, be around 500 in your conference to make the NCAA tournament. 13 out of 16 teams making the NCAA tournament is a joke for the SEC. I get it. It's the best conference this year. But you went 6-12 in it. And I know you won a lot of games in the non-conference, and they have a lot of good wins in the non-conference early in the season. But you can't even win. You can't even go 500? Unreal. I got a poll question out there. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, it's part of our deal. We're having a new segment that we're going to do in the end of the show called Do You Know Ball? And today's Do You Know Ball question, we put it out there. How many brackets are the correct amount to fill out? I have the answer where I understand ball. I know the answer to this question. Now, here's how we're going to do this. Either I know ball or you guys know ball. So I have my answer that I'm going to defend coming up at 150, and I'm going to see how it compares to what you guys said on Twitter with the Twitter poll. You can go at 97.3 the fan SD. You could also check out my Twitter page at B_SURP and find out what the poll is. How many brackets are the correct amount to fill out? Only get one, 2 max, 2 plus. If you guys pick the answer as a consensus and it's not the answer I have, I don't know ball. If you guys pick the answer that I picked, you guys might know ball. And I know ball. So we'll talk about that at 150. The poll's out there. How many brackets are the correct amount to fill out? If you want to weigh in the chat, you can. I have my answer. I'll announce that at 150. We have sound from Mike Schilt that we're going to get to, talking about Michael King being the opening day starter when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, 97.3 The Fan. 10:35 on a Monday here in San Diego, California. Braden Surprenant on the Braden Surprenant Show. Weekdays from 10 to 2. You can follow me on social media at @B_SURP, at @BSURP. We are broadcasting live on 97.3 The Fan on your radio airwaves. We are also on YouTube, Braden Surprenant Show page at @B_SURP. 97.3 The Fan. Get you all this great breaking news at a Padres camp as the Padres flagship. We're also on Facebook, Twitch, and anywhere else that you can find all this stuff. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. You could search the Braden Surprenant Show. You can tune into anything that you missed on the podcast form. Braden Surprenant Show on Spotify, Apple Music, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to it so we can get to you as soon as possible. We really appreciate you guys tuning into us each and every day. Make sure you hit the like button on the YouTube if you haven't done so already. There's 93 of you on the YouTube page right now. Give us a like. It really helps out with our algorithm so we can push out more of our sports talk and our breaking news of the Padres opening day starter to as many people as possible. Mike Shildt announced earlier today that Michael King is going to be the opening day starter for the Padres on March 27th. We are 10 days away from opening day against the Atlanta Braves. There was a lot of conversation about this. It sounds like there was more parties involved of who could potentially be the opening day starter than we thought. And for more on this, here's Mike Shildt at the press conference earlier this morning.
Michael King will be our opening day starter. Yeah. And, the reason we got to this, first of all, let's back up. We had three really strong candidates for this. Darvish, obviously, Michael, and Dylan. And when we got the rain today, we decided to push Darvish back. I went to you and I said, this can impact your opening day. And it speaks to the teammate that he is and the culture that we have about selflessness and team. And he said, don't worry about that. Michael or Dylan, let them, one of those two guys be the opening day starter. I'm okay with it. So I really spoke well about Darvish. So now we got a 2-horse race. And then it literally fell into just the way that days have gone. Michael was a little sick early in camp and got his schedule going in a certain way, and Dylan got his schedule going a certain way, and the schedules have worked out really well. But it lines Michael up, who's well deserving of the open day starter. So he's happy. We're excited for him, and it just puts Dylan on a regular rest that we want to be mindful of. Talked to Dylan this morning about it. Listen, there's other opportunities. Both of them can compete for starting in the All-Star game and pitching in Game 1 of the playoffs. So Dylan took it well. Thought that, clearly put himself in position for it. But Michael is going to be our open day starter.
How did what he did last year in the postseason, his ability to kind of handle the big stage, how did that kind of impact the way you saw this?
I think it was a body of work of everything. Last year, he got better. I mean, look after April with Michael, and there's a really clear case that he was the Cy Young from May to the end of the season, including the playoffs. So I think that was a huge part of it. And he continues to go about things and pitch well during the spring training, and it looks like he's in a really good place.
It's just one start. The guy it's most important to is the pitcher who's making it. It's pretty cool.
Right.
What's it like for you to tell him?
Oh, it's fantastic. We like to celebrate good things. The game's hard, and as much as we can talk and celebrate and enjoy and appreciate, a milestone that we, and you share that with the player and see that, genuine smile and enthusiasm and appreciation for it is a special moment.
For him, that's a pretty big, leap from where he was this time last year, still building up, and now opening day started the next year. That's an uncommon kind of thing.
Yeah, it's good to get. It's good to see that reflection. I mean, last year he came in and, a lot of representation of our year last year. There's just a lot of uncertainty that got really cleared up, and Michael was part of that, and we lost a known commodity, a multi-generational talent in Juan, and what the return is we get an open day starter a year later, and the guy that helped us contribute to get to and win playoff games. So, yeah, it's a good way of looking at it, yes.
Mike Schilt, San Diego Padres manager, announcing the opening day starter. Again, it is going to be Michael King, and kind of a great journey for Michael King. And you heard Jesse Agler there near the end ask about, what a difference a year makes, right? In terms of, Michael King was trying to go out there and be a starting pitcher in 2024, a guy that has been mostly a bullpen piece for the Yankees. And he did a phenomenal job. Started off a little shaky, but really set into his own and became the best pitcher for the San Diego Padres come postseason time. He was one of the best, if not the best. And when you needed a game and you felt like you wanted to go out, you needed a win. And if you got to pick your guy, it was Michael King at the end of the season. And now it's going to be Michael King at the beginning of the season. Mike Schilt talked around, it's timing and this and that and whatever. And I think he does that to protect his players. He always does that. He's always making sure they're all in the right step and taking care of all his guys and not saying, one's better than the other and everything like that. He does a very good job at handling the media like that. But, with the way it was with Yu Darvish and Dylan Cease and Michael King, and, I think the respect level across the board with the starting rotation has set up for that. But what a great honor for Michael King. I know he's fired up about it. And here's Michael King talking about his reaction and the emotion that went into in the emotion to reacting to being named the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres.
Your reaction, what is your reaction to being named the opening starter?
I'm very proud and happy for the opportunity. When Ruben called me into Schulte's office and almost seemed like glum. So I was like, I don't know what this could be about. And then Schulte was very, very happy to deliver the news. So it's a huge honor for me and look forward to it.
This morning or yesterday?
This morning.
You've come kind of a long way since you were a reliever just a little while ago. What does this say kind of to you? It's kind of just an honorary thing to pitch the first game. There's 161 after, but it seems quite symbolic.
Yeah. That's cool. Obviously, I work for these types of things, but like you said, after the first game, the whole rotation gets mixed up with off days and matchups and all-star break. So it's really just being that guy come October. I was fortunate to get the first game of the playoffs last year, and that's still another goal of mine this year.
Who was that against?
I realize you said it's only one game. Did you see this as a possibility coming into camp?
I guess, yeah, I definitely thought of it as a possibility. We got a bunch of guys that I know Schulte said it. Probably a tough decision for him to make. I would not have been upset if it was Dylan or Darvish or Pivetta or whoever he chose. He's got a lot of guys that he could choose from. And again, it's that same like internal competition that we all have. It's going to be, I'm going to hope to set the tone and then tell Dylan, hey, try to do better than that. And that'll be throughout the whole year. We love each other. We care for each other. We want everybody to do their best. So Dylan was super congratulatory to me, which I thought was really cool. And yeah, we're just going to go throughout the whole year and compete against the other team while still trying to compete against each other.
What a great answer from Michael King in terms of the reaction and everything like that. I think he kind of hints at that relationship that the starting pitching has together and that rotation. And we've seen that on the good teams that the Padres have had. They have a rotation that tries to outdo one another and has the competition within the competition, right? Where they're competing against the Braves, right, in the first weekend series, but individually against each other in the rotation, they're trying to outdo each other. I love it. I mean, you could be a part of a team that has a lot of egos, right? And you get all these big stars on a team, they have egos, and everybody wants to be the opening day starter. And a lot of these guys have had opening day starts. I mean, Darvish has had multiple opening day starts. Dylan Cease has had multiple opening day starts. Michael King's first opportunity to be an opening day starter, and instead of kind of being upset about or anything like that, the love has been there, and the competition is there, and the camaraderie is there. And Michael King was asked about that tight-knit group that rotation has and just how tight it is when it comes to going out there and competing every day.
While it is just one game of 162, it would seem like an incredible honor. Everyone gets so geeked up for opening day. Like, well, I assume you hope that you have many of these in your career, but like what Can you talk about why it's such a big deal to start the first game? Or
I mean, it's opening day. It's hard to describe. Everybody gets those jitters. Even on, like, I knew I wasn't pitching opening day last year, and I was still super excited for opening day. It's the start of the baseball season, and everybody looks forward to it. So it's also you want to set the tone for the team. And I told Schulte we'll be 1-0 after that game, and it's that coming into a season and starting 1-0 is just, it's something that every team is trying to do, and you got to win each game. And I think winning the first game of the season, it sets the tone for what we're going to do for the rest of the season.
You can speak to the camaraderie of the rotation while also having that competition internally as well.
Oh yeah, and it's such good competition. After every game, every start, we're going over everything that we could have done better, and it's with ourselves. I just talked about where last year Joe Musgrove would come sit next to me after a bad outing, and I respected it because normally you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to that guy, I'll let him cool down. Joe let me get everything off my chest, and then also told me what I could have done better and things that he saw in terms of sequences or mechanics or whatever it is. And so but then the next time out, when I do it well, he's so happy for making that adjustment. And it's the same thing with Dylan, Darvish, and it's going to be the same thing with Pavetta and whoever our 5 is. I think that we have each other's backs, and it's something that we love about each other. We know that it's going to take all of us to win, especially to get to the playoffs out of 162. And then I always say pitching wins championships in the playoffs. So we're going to push ourselves to be the best we can be. And I got nothing but respect for everybody else in that rotation.
I mentioned the stuff that Joe said and everything like that and what Joe Musgrove brings. I thought it was the coolest thing that he was he helped coach in that spring breakout game. Those are some of the things, man, that are making this organization grow and build the building blocks. You brought in all the pieces to have that happen with Manny, trading for Joe as a local guy, and you're starting to finally see it come together. You can talk about LA as much as you want. That took them decades to get to the point they are right now. And they've had a head start in order to do it. If you want to be able to match that and be that St. Louis Cardinals organization and that Los Angeles Dodgers organization, Atlanta Braves organization that's consistently good, that Peter Seidler wanted, that was part of his vision, these are the little things you take care of that gets you to that finish line, that gets you to that level. It's more than just acquiring talent. It's more than just having a payroll. It's more than just having good players on your team. It's more than just winning games. It's the process over the results. And the way that this team is gelling together and the way that they have this camaraderie and the way that they're pulling the rope in the right direction and the way that they're helping out the younger guys, with the things that Joe is doing, the way that they're establishing a culture and building off of it gets you to the place that Peter Seidler wanted this organization to be at. It's more than just winning games, guys. It's building a culture. That is so important in everyday life of teams, of organizations, of, in any aspect of life. It's that human element in that culture. They're doing that right now. That goes a long way. I mean, there's so many teams that are very talented that don't have that type of culture or mutual respect that fail. This is great. I love everything about this. Michael King being the opening day starter over Dylan Cease is an interesting topic, but everything that's being said right now by Michael King and Mike Schilt and the actions of the players over the weekend, I don't want to tease it too much because I'm going to talk about this at noon. This is Peter's vision. This is what he wanted to do. This is what he's trying and what he was trying to get this organization to. Yes, winning a World Series is the ultimate goal, but building a winner each and every year, it starts with stuff like this. This is what it is. I love this. This is great. You know what else I love? Can't wait to see Michael King pitch opening day at Petco Park, and he's already got the butterflies about doing that. Here is Michael King talking about what it's going to be like and what he envisions opening day at Petco Park.
You had the chance to experience Petco Park during the regular season, during the postseason last year. What's your level of anticipation to not just pitch on opening day, but pitch on opening day in that ballpark?
Yeah, I I was shook by how loud it was when I was warming up during the announcements for playoffs. Luckily, I was able to do it twice because it was first game of the wild card, and then it was the first home game against the Dodgers and the DS. And I can't wait to feel that again. I think that there's nothing like running out from the dugout when they're cheering your name, but it's different when you're out there in the bullpen and hearing it from their perspective, being out in the crowd. It's a blast, and I'll just try to make sure I can keep the adrenaline to a minimum while I'm out there.
It's a slow build. This has been a slow build over the last handful of years. I know Padres fans, you've been wanting this for so long. The Padres haven't been in the World Series since 1998. I was 3 years old. I turned 30 this week. It's been a long time. There's been a lot of dark days of Padres baseball. And everything that's going on right now. Now, I'm not saying this team's winning the World Series based on just an announcement that Michael King is the opening day starter. But I'm telling you guys, as much as the doom and gloom has happened over the offseason with the money and everything like that, what overcomes a lot of those things is how you build a culture and how you establish what it's going to be to do things the Padres way, which was never established in any team before they started putting this team together. And it has taken acquiring talent. It has taken signing big free agents. It has taken acquiring players from other spots that have this mental makeup. It's bringing in Manny Machado. It's then acquiring a Fernando Tatis Jr. That's some of the talent. But it's also now they've been established here, and they're under these long-term contracts, and they're establishing what it takes to be a San Diego Padre, what they want it to be in terms of a San Diego, what they want every Padre to be. I keep going back to the Kyle Glazier article he wrote on the Dodgers back in 2020. I mean, it's a big reason why they've had a lot of success, because when you entered that building for the first time at any level, you knew what was expected of you when you got to the highest level and you got to play at Chavez Ravine. A lot of organizations do that. The Padres didn't have that established, but they're putting that in right now. And the way the players have been talking the last couple of spring trainings, it's showing that they're still building off that, building and building and building and building. You could throw a lot of money at problems. You have to have good talent, but you have to have good players and good people in an organization with a good mental makeup that understand how to win and how to come together and how to be able to put it all together. And it wasn't going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen. It takes some time. I mean, where the Padres were at, it's going to take a long time to put this together. It did. The negative people in the chat, I mean, they just want the Padres to always be bad. I mean, I see it all the time. Every type of good news in the chat, they get negative because they've always known the Padres as a bad team, and they love the negativity. It's changing now. This is how you build a consistent winner. That's what the idea was. The more chances you have at the postseason, the more chances you have in the postseason, the more chances you have of finally breaking through to the World Series, especially in a sport like baseball, where when you get to the playoffs, it's really a crapshoot. Eno Saris joined Ben and Woods last year talking about what the best of series had to be in order for you to really get a fair shake at the postseason. It's like a best of 75, best of 73 series. It's never going to happen. You make the playoffs, you got a shot. It's not always the best team that wins in the postseason. But what gets you there every year is establishing this culture of what it means to be a San Diego Padre. It's guys like Machado, and it's guys like Joe Musgrove. It's guys like Xander Bogaerts. That's why Xander Bogaerts has been such a huge aspect to this team as well. Michael King, opening day starter, breaking news, already an hour into the show. If you want to weigh in, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. What do you guys think, Padres fans? I'm excited for the season. I love everything that's going on. Give me a phone call. You can tweet at me at @B_SURP. We'll continue this as we head to the next hour on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Hour number 2 on the Braden Surprenant Show. We had breaking news in the first hour of the show, right as the show went on. That always happens. We either get breaking news at 9:55, right at 10 a.m., right when Ben and Woods get out the door, or we get it exactly at 2 o'clock. That's really the only times we get breaking news. And we go live 6 a.m. to 6 p. every single day on 97.3 The Fan. And we got coverage for you wall to wall about the San Diego Padres all day long. We're the Padres flagship station. You know, this show right here is all local all the time. I'm a born and raised San Diegan, 4th generation. You hear it in the open. I'm so proud to call San Diego home. I love this city. I'm so glad I have blessed with the opportunity to talk sports with all of you guys. After growing up listening to sports talk radio my whole life, the weird kid growing up listening to sports talk radio, who does that? Kids that love sports and love talking about them, especially in San Diego. What a better place to be than 97.3 The Fan all day long, 6A to 6P. And we have great coverage coming up later this afternoon on Gwynn and Chris, because Tony Gwynn Jr. and Chris Ello and Matt Scraby are out in Peoria. They're going to be out there the next couple of days. They have already racked up an insane guest list. They're going to have Ruben Niebla on. They're going to have Jackson Merrill on. They're going to have Jason Hayward on. Jake Cronenworth, Gavin Sheets, Tyler Wade. And then I think coming up tomorrow, they're working on Michael King, Dylan Cease, Joe Musgrove, and even some more. I mean, if you are into Padres baseball and you are into San Diego local sports, there's no other reason to listen to anybody else. You listen to us all day long. I mean, we're 10 days out from opening day. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. If you haven't done so already, it really helps us out, helps promote the station and the new show. Give us a like on YouTube. If you're in the YouTube chat, there's 100 people in there. Let's get those numbers up a little bit. When it comes to the likes, be sure to give us the like. We really appreciate that. If you want to weigh in on the show, you can comment in the chat. You can send us tweets at X at 97.3 The Fan SD or at B_SURP. If you haven't done so already, do it right now. Get your phone out. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at B_SURP. Posting tons of videos. We'll have clips from the shows up there and a lot of other content involving local San Diego sports, especially the San Diego Padres. Be sure to follow us on and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast, Odyssey app. Subscribe to our particular podcast, the Braden Surprenant Show. You can find it by searching Braden Surprenant. We're there, and we're going to be here every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. So I love the fact that Michael King is getting the opening day nod. He's excited about it. I think, most of the rotation, the entire rotation's excited about it too. That competition level in between is great. Love seeing that. You could hear the camaraderie that those guys have and that culture. And I kept talking about that at the end of the last hour. We're really going to take a deeper dive into that at noon. When people were complaining about the spring training record, affecting whether or not they should go to the San Diego FC game when Manny flew them out on a private jet and they ate in and out on the way back. They had a great time. Well, they didn't play as well the next day. Who cares? Who cares? Until those games start counting in the standings, who cares? 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We had additional news over the weekend. Darvish got kind of shut down a little bit, but not too much. Mike Schilt was asked about that today on the latest on Darvish. I know it kind of affected the opening day starter kind of situation. I think it could have gone any way with the opening day starter. You've done it a handful of times. Dylan Cease has done it. I'm glad Michael King gets the opportunity to do it now. But here's Mike Schilt on the status of Darvish.
He's experiencing some like general fatigue. We're just backing him off a little bit. So we're reevaluating his schedule. Been in a good place. Got his 4 innings. Got his pitch count to a good place. Just want to be smart heading into a long season.
Could that impact his progression for that first term through the rotation?
I can't say it couldn't impact it, but I don't have the information right now to say it's going to or won't impact it.
Any specifics on the fatigue? Is it just general, this kind of spring? Has he dealt with it before?
Yeah, general fatigue. That's the conversation with him, and he's dealt with fatigue before, and just working through it.
Would you still evaluate him daily, like he could throw tomorrow, or are you guys going to wait till after the off day for him to?
It's fluid. We're evaluating him as the days go. We've had a couple of days of rest, and we'll see how he responds and what looks like from really more of a medical standpoint. What that clearance looks like.
That's the latest on you, Darvish. I'm not overly worried about it. Yu is always in a spot where he can get himself ready to go for the season. He takes good care of his body. I mean, he's up there in age, but for a guy that is near 40 years old as a Major League Baseball player, he has got himself in great shape. And I think it's just a little bit of a, fatigue thing for him. And I would expect him to make probably the start on Saturday of opening weekend against the Atlanta Braves. And I misspoke earlier. They don't play the Giants in the second series. They play Cleveland. I was trying to look at the schedule across the room, and the Giants logo from afar looked like the Guardians logo. So they are playing the Guardians in the second game of the or second series of the season. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I think Kevin Acee had a lot of good talking points in his recent article, and we broke this down last Monday. I think it's a weekly thing until we get to opening day, at least till next week, when you start really diving into opening day rosters. Next week will be the final week of this particular case. And again, there's not too many Padres spring training games left. I mean, we are 10 days out from opening day. And it's going to be a fun opening day. We're going to be at Baja Rick's before the game starts downtown. It's going to be awesome. Again, we have a live remote coming up this Friday, and we'll talk some college basketball later on in the show. We'll be at Dave & Buster's on Friday. Hopefully watching Aztec basketball. If the Aztecs win tomorrow against North Carolina, they will play Friday against Ole Miss in Milwaukee at 1:00. So that will be the last hour of my show at Dave & Buster's and all of Gwyn and Chris. There's going to be no other place to be besides Dave & Buster's. Unfortunately for us, UCSD is playing on a Thursday. So I guess we'll be recapping the UCSD win over Michigan and getting you ready for Aztec basketball if everything plays the way we would like it to play. And then again, for opening day, we'll be at Baja Rick's, Ben Woods, and then myself. And then on opening weekend, on that Saturday, we will be set up for the block party, which will be great. So we'll have all that stuff worked out for you guys. A lot of live opportunities to come see us, out there in the community. And love that port of a sports talk radio. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's get out to Adam in Carlsbad. No, we're not going to go to Adam in Carlsbad. We'll get to the phones in just a bit. I do want to mention spring training is almost done, as we have, as I mentioned before, we're getting this roster talk from Kevin Acee. There are only a handful of games left. They'll play Milwaukee today at 1:00. They got the Giants tomorrow at 6:05. as part of a Giants split squad. Off day Wednesday, and then they will go Rangers, Cubs, split squad Saturday against the two teams from Ohio, Arizona Sunday, Seattle next Monday, and then that's it. So they got 8 spring training games left in 7 days, 8 days, because one of them's a split squad and they have an off day in one of those spots. So there are eight opportunities left for players to make this team. Now, we talked about the opening day starter. Here's how everything's playing out with the rest of the roster. And we're going to kind of lay out what Kevin Acee said, and then we're going to break it down when we come back. But the situation is this, according from the Kevin Acee piece. Elias Diaz was essentially given one of the catcher spots when he signed his contract. We already knew that. We've talked about that last week. And the Padres appear to have decided to go with Jason Hayward as the primary left fielder at the start of the season. Not something we necessarily knew was set in stone. We kind of figured, but didn't really know. I assumed that he was probably going to make the team, but it's up in the air. I mean, he's an aging veteran, thought maybe he could get some reps off the bench or anything like that. It sounds like he's going to be the primary left fielder. So that's a roster spot, maybe taken. But if you look at the chart that we put out last week, he was already accounted for on that opening day roster. That rounds out the 8 regular position players on the roster and leaves 5 available spots as we continue the math game of the opening day roster. You can't talk any further about the roster without talking about Gavin Sheets. And it's funny, I mentioned this in last week about the numbers, right? I mean, if you're going to evaluate the numbers for Gavin Sheets, you have to do it for other players. And I mentioned Xander Bogaerts immediately. I posted on social media, and one of the comments was like, I can't believe you're evaluating spring training stats. Well, I'm not, but if you're going to evaluate Gavin Sheets, I'm just saying to play devil's advocate, you should evaluate everybody's spring numbers. But Gavin Sheets has earned his way on this team. He has played really good baseball. And the fact that he is a player that can play a lot of different spots and is a left-handed bat and he's got pop, and he has shown off that pop with 6 home runs already and 11 hits in his past 20 at-bats, according to Kevin Acee, have appeared to lock up a spot for the left-handed hitter who can serve as the DH. Play first base, corner outfield spots. So that's 1 off the list. You're down to 4. Infielder Jose Iglesias has played well enough to make it practically a given to many on the inside that he will be on the team. Now you're down to 3 spots, and this is where things get interesting. One name on this list I'm shocked about, and I can't believe that he is potentially going to make this team. And we will talk about that when we come back. I don't know why. I don't know what the reason is, but if this particular player makes the team, it makes it a lot more difficult to keep players in the organization because of options. We'll discuss when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:18 on a Monday morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you that celebrate. Last night, we did our own celebration. Do it on a Sunday. My dad loves the corn. He loves doing the corned beef and cabbage deal. My rest of my family, well, my brother likes it. I like it. My sister does not, but she's in Nashville, so she didn't have a say in the matter this time. My mom is not a huge fan of it unless my dad turns it into like a Reuben sandwich. And so last night, as I worked 8 hours of baseball, I missed out on the fresh hot Reuben sandwich. Now, we made it on sourdough, not rye. I know that's against the rules, but we prefer sourdough. It's fine. I got home and I reheated the sandwich. I kind of put it on the grill a little bit. I like to dabble in some cooking. I haven't been able to do that. More time in the summer is the time for me. And again, if you follow me on social media, you'll start seeing some grilling stuff. I like to smoke a lot of meats on the Traeger with the smoker. I've done brisket a handful of times, ribs, all that stuff. I do like to cook, and it's a passion of mine. And the more you get to know on this show, we will talk about more of that. But what I had last night was a pastrami, a corned beef, obviously with a Reuben sandwich, delicious. A little bit of this potato cabbage thing that they made as well. But the best part was I had to have the black and tan. Had to have a black and tan. So last night celebrated the St. Patrick's Day with a black and tan. Delicious. It's good stuff. Good way to end the day after a long day at the yard for eight hours of baseball. So that's how I participated in St. Patrick's Day. Tonight, softball playoffs kind of take precedent at the Poway Sportsplex. I got 2 teams that I'm on playing tonight. I'm on 3 teams on Mondays, but one of them, and shout out to Shoddy, who runs the other 2 teams I'm on. But we got Mixed Company, which is my co-ed team, got a playoff game tonight at 6 at the Poway Sportsplex. And then if we win, we play at 8 for the championship. The problem is my men's team, which is run by my brother, which is my original team, plays their first playoff game at 8. So if I win at 6, they're going to have to do it without me at 8, which I think they can do. And then at 8 o'clock, it will be the Vols, which is a different play of the words of Vols that I will not say on the radio as the team name, but it is appropriate for the Poway Sportsplex because they signed off on it. We will play at 8 o'clock, and if we win, we play at 9. So a little bit of softball playoffs at the Poway Sportsplex. I'll let you know how that goes for everybody that definitely cares about that. But I'll be out there for most of the evening tonight, and it should be a fun time. So shout out to Shoddy and the team for Mixed Company. Meanwhile, Big Nasty, the other men's team I'm on, they're off this week. They will play playoffs next week, so I'll have back-to-back playoff weeks. The rib has gotten better, but it's still super sore, and I feel like I got hit by a car right in the ribs. That's what it feels like today. So hopefully that's not a big problem. I might have to go see a chiropractor for that to see if I have a rib subluxation. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just it's a bruise, but anybody that's had a rib injury understands that it is a very painful thing, and it never goes away. It takes forever to go away. But anyway, that's enough about me. Let's talk about the one player that I can't believe that he's in the conversation of making this team, especially with the fact that there's a lot of players that don't have options that are trying to make this team. So we went through it, right? As Kevin Acey pointed out, Elias Diaz got a spot when he signed a contract, and Jason Hayward's going to be the everyday starting left fielder or the primary left fielder. That was the 2 bits of news coming out of Peoria. One of them we already knew was Elias Diaz. We knew that was the case. Hayward, we kind of figured, assumed, but wasn't really set in stone. I don't think it's still set in stone, but okay. He's going to be the everyday left fielder. That leaves you 5 available spots. Gavin Sheets, as a left-handed power hitter that can do a lot of different things, like play in the infield and play a corner outfield spot, has hit his way onto the roster. You're down to 4. Infielder Jose Iglesias has played well enough to make it practically a given to many on the inside that he'll be on the team. In fact, the way that Mike Schilt talked about him last week, to me, it was a foregone conclusion he's going to be on the team. That gives you 3 spots left. Here's the part where it's just like, really? Some also feel, this is a quote from Kevin Acey's piece today, some also feel strongly that 40-year-old Yuli Gurriel deserves the benefit of any doubt due to his performance this spring and his big league experience as a DH with a 764 career OPS. Really? The guy's 40 years old. He hasn't really done much of anything in the last couple of years. I understand he brings a veteran presence, and I don't really think, like, I'm not saying this from the perspective of what the past between him and Yu Darvish. It seems like, Yu's a good guy, and and he's a fair guy, and water under the bridge for you. And as long as he was okay with it, I don't really care. I'm not going to get into that can of worms. But to me, it's when you're trying to keep as many players in the organization as possible, you want to keep, and maybe they don't. Yuli Gurriel to me would be a cross off, like not even part of the conversation. But those 3 being considered virtual locks, he's part of the virtual lock situation. So you had 5 spots. One of them goes to Sheets, one of them goes to Iglesias, and one of them goes to Yuli Gurriel. You got 2 spots left. 2 spots left. If Sheets, Iglesias, and Gurriel do have spots along with the second catcher, that now gives you 1, which will either be Luis Campusano or Martin Maldonado, which is a significant source of internal debate. They did not list our other catcher, which is Brett Sullivan, which means, and he's out of options, so sayonara. He listed, Kevin Acey, Campusano, and Martin Maldonado. They did not list Brett Sullivan. That would leave 1 spot for a group of players that all have arguable cases. Those players on the fringe. Now, this is battling for 1 spot now, because Iglesias, Sheets, and Gurriel are all considered virtual locks right now to make the San Diego Padres. The Gurriel one is insane to me. I can't believe it. But you know what? I will talk about why it makes sense in a second. Those on the fridge, Brandon Lockridge, outfielder Oscar Gonzalez, who has had a really good spring, first baseman outfielder Connor Joe, infielder left fielder Eggy Rosario, outfielder Tirso Ornelas, and now infielder outfielder Tyler Wade. They just gave Tyler Wade a contract. They gave him $900,000. I thought for sure Wade would make the team, but he's in this conversation now. Some have stellar spring training stats. Some have history with the team or elsewhere in the majors. Some have both. In terms of options, well, you have options. Brandon Lockridge has 3 of them, so I would imagine he's probably not making the team. I don't know how many options Oscar Gonzalez has. I think he has a couple, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Connor Joe has options. He's got 2, so he can start in AAA if needed. Eggy Rosario does not have any options, so if he does not make the team, he is going elsewhere. Tirso Ornelas does. Infielder, outfielder Tyler Wade does not. So the way this shakes out to me, in order to make the Yuli Gurriel situation make sense, is the decision comes down to Eggy Rosario and Tyler Wade. Because with everybody else having options, you can put those guys in AAA, and then if Yuli Gurriel does not work out in the first month and a half, you can cut him and then bring one of those guys back up, and you're all set. But if you let Eggy and Wade leave, and then you keep some of these guys, I mean, it's kind of a roster mess. So when it's kind of fringe guys that are battling close together, that's kind of the situation you have. So I think the decision's probably going to come down to Eggy Rosario and Tyler Wade. You could send Lockridge down. You could send Connor Joe down. You could send Tirso Ornelas down. And then if it doesn't work with Yuli Gurriel, you can bring one of those guys back up. Now, if it does work with Yuli Gurriel and you have now this veteran DH hitter and everything is fine and dandy, then it works out. He's not making a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, he's like your Jerkson Profar for the year to an extent. I don't think he's going to be that great of a player. But you know what? If it works, it works. I think it'd be more of a Matt Carpenter situation or maybe a Rougned Odor because the guy's 40. But that's where the decision makes sense for the San Diego Padres. What do you think? 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Diving more into some Padres baseball talk. We'll, of course, look at the NCAA tournament field, where they got it right. But when we come back, Padres starting rotation is starting to solidify. We have the opening day starter. Who's going to be the fifth spot in the rotation? A lot of news that happened this weekend that's really narrowing it down to a couple of options. And I'll tell you who that's going to be. You might not be surprised when we come back. The Braden Surprenant Show, live and local from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 11:35 on a Monday morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there that celebrate. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning into the Braden Surprenant Show. Live and local every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. If you haven't done so already, give us a like on the YouTube page. Really helps us out. If you're on YouTube and you haven't hit the like button yet, feel free to do that. Also, follow me on social media. Thanks again to Tyler, who just did it on Instagram. Shout out to you, man. Appreciate the follow. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X at B_SURP at BSURP. It really helps out. It'll get you a lot of Padres content out there, as we've been talking Padres for the whole, first couple of hours of the show. We even got into San Diego State and UCSD, making the NCAA tournament and different bracket stuff that I've already seen. And I've spent a lot of time on that also, but got a lot of great Padres news. 10 days away from opening day. Padres announced an opening day starter, Michael King. Michael King got the opening day nod, which I think is great. But that leaves another spot in the rotation that the Padres still haven't solidified yet. And the next 8 spring training games will probably help decide who's going to get that last spot. We know that Michael King's going to be the opening day starter. We know that it's going to be some type of order behind him in Dylan Cease, Yu Darvish, and Nick Pivetta, if not that order. But what do we got in terms of that final spot? Now, if we look at what the race was, Stephen Kolek, Randy Vasquez, Kyle Hart, and Matt Waldron. Now, over the weekend, Matt Waldron had a little bit of discomfort, and he will be sidelined with a left oblique injury. That was some of the news that we got over the weekend. Padres right-hander Matt Waldron is expected to miss the start of the season after he suffered a left oblique strain while warming up in the bullpen on Friday night. Team said the strain was mild, and a day later, Waldron was optimistic that he'd caught the injury before it developed into something more severe, but the right-hander will need to take some time away from throwing, essentially ruling him out of the mix for the opening day roster. So that's one less candidate for that final spot. And again, the Padres want guys in AAA getting reps, and they also want one of these potential players to be in the bullpen because of the injuries to the long relief guys to start the season. More importantly, Brian Hoeing. Now, Johnny Brito has been ruled out of the conversation for the rotation spot a couple of weeks ago. He's expected to be in the bullpen, but they could still use another piece in that bullpen as well, and they want a guy in AAA, and they need a number 5 starter. So your contenders left are Stephen Kolek, Kyle Hart, and Randy Vasquez, with really 3 guys battling for 2 spots, one of them being the number 5 starter, the other one probably being the long relief guy. Stephen Kolek arrived as arguably the biggest long shot of the bunch because he was a Rule 5 pick last season and suddenly became the favorite because of the way that he pitched in spring. In addition to his impressive work on the backfields, he's allowed just 1 run on 5 hits across 9 innings. Came up in the Mariners system as a starter, but moved to the bullpen a couple of years ago, selected by the Padres in the 2023 Rule 5 draft, stayed on the team the entire year, and all of his appearances came in relief last season, but the Padres have been building up towards a starter's workload this spring to a lot of success. The other name on the list is Kyle Hart. Now, Kyle Hart, to me, is the guy. I think he needs to be the number 5 starter. Biggest wild card of the bunch, Kyle Hart had not been able to pitch too much this season or spring training, hasn't had too many opportunities. That one start that he had against Milwaukee on a Friday got rained out, and even though he went 2 scoreless innings, it doesn't count to spring training. And so he finally got to pitch over the weekend. Well, over the weekend, he threw 3+ innings against the Diamondbacks in a split squad in a 5-4 loss to Arizona on Sunday afternoon. But he was right where he needed to be as he battled for that final spot. Threw about 59 pitches, 36 for strikes. He's finally starting to build himself up, and you start looking at what he did on his stat line. I mean, if you look at the results, they weren't that great. But it's the process over results in spring training. If you look at the results, you're like, well, this guy can't be the 5th starter. But if you look at what was working and what he was working on. I mean, that sweeper that he kept throwing was playing against the Diamondbacks. And most of the hits that he gave up were seeing eye singles. I mean, not necessarily things that were hit very hard. Then you look at, well, he did give up a home run to Corbin Carroll. But Corbin Carroll, his home run that he hit yesterday had an expected batting average of a 150. And it would have been a homer in only one of 30 big league parks in Houston with the wind blowing out. I mean, that thing just kind of carried out in spring training in Arizona, which is some of the results you expect to get in spring training. That's why you can't overemphasize the results. You got to talk about the process. And Kyle Hart really showed out. In total, he threw his sweep. We talked about that sweeper-slider combo that looked devastating. Hart threw sweepers and sliders with 26 of his 59 pitches and recorded called strikes with 9 of them. And as Hart said, I'm pretty simple-minded out there at times. If guys are hitting something, I'm going to try to not throw that. And if guys are aren't hitting something, I'm going to throw that more. It's going to change every week probably, but today I just felt like they weren't swinging at the sweeper a lot, so I was just trying to go and throw it in there as much as I could. Technically, it counted as Hart's first appearance of the spring because that game that he had against Milwaukee, but I like the process. Now, here's the decision-making. You kind of have to make these decisions like you do with the roster. So you have 3 players. You need 1 to start in AAA. You need 1 to be in the bullpen, and you need 1 to be the 5th starter. To be honest, with the 3 guys that you have left, with Matt Waldron missing the beginning part of the season, to me, I think it's a no-brainer. And we'll see what the Padres do, and you still got 8 games left, and, you know, with injuries and everything like that. If you look at the 3 guys left for those 3 particular spots, I think the more natural fit is to have the young guy and Randy Vasquez start the season in AAA. Now, there's a confidence thing there, right, with the PCL, and numbers are going to be skewed. He's going to give up a lot of home runs just because it's the PCL. But I need him getting innings as much as possible, not sitting in the bullpen and only coming in 1 or 2 times in the first couple of weeks. He needs to go log innings in the minors because he is a future asset to the San Diego Padres. That's why they traded for him in that Juan Soto deal. They got Michael King back, but they needed some of the other arms for the future, right? Michael King was just kind of the gap stop guy for the time being. Now, whether or not they re-signed him because they offered him the opening day spot today, and that's what he's going to do, remains to be seen. But Randy Vasquez, to me, will start in AAA. So now the decision is Stephen Kolek in the bullpen and Kyle Hart is the number 5 starter, or Stephen Kolek is the number 5 starter and Kyle Hart in the bullpen. I think Stephen Kolek, with his experience in the bullpen the last couple of years, I think he could potentially be back in the bullpen as a long relief guy and still get enough innings where he could be built up for when they need to throw him in as a starter. And again, with the way that the first couple of games play out, they're only going to go with a 5-man rotation. I don't know if they're thinking about a 6-man rotation later on in the season. I doubt it. But I think you start Stephen Kolek in the bullpen, and I think you start with Kyle Hart in the number 5 spot. And if for any reason it gets bad, you could potentially switch the 2 in the roles that they have. But the way that Kyle Hart, again, the process, more so than the results, I'm sticking to my guns. I think he needs to be the number 5 starter for the San Diego Padres. I think he's fit right there. And I think that's the job for him to lose. I think Kolek has looked really, really good. I mean, Padres fans wanted him ran out of town last year. That was a Rule 5 draft pick. Had to keep him on the roster. I'm so glad that they did. There's obviously a reason they took him in the Rule 5 draft as a team that was competing for a World Series. Teams that are being ready for a World Series aren't grabbing Rule 5 draft picks. Teams that are, the 2019 Padres, 2018 Padres, when they're drafting, Luis Torrens and Alan Cordoba in the Rule 5 draft. The teams that are rebuilding, those are the ones that grab Rule 5 picks, not teams like the Padres. So I think Hart hits the number 5 spot, put Kolek in the bullpen, send Randy Vasquez down to AAA. We'll see how it plays out. We have talked a lot of Padres, but we want to start implementing some of our new features here on the show. We'll get some imaging for it very quickly in the near future. But we're going to go with today's sports thread. Today's sports thread is going to be a lot of the 5 stories that you would send or you're getting right now in your group chats. You got to have a good knowledge of what's going on in the sports world for your group chats. You can't be the guy in the group chat that doesn't know what's going on with some of the big trending stories in sports. We got the Padres stuff on lock, but there's other stuff going on in the sports world. And so let's talk about the 5 biggest stories you've probably seen today in your group text, and we'll have some takes on it. Here's Adam Klug.
Let's start off in the world of Major League Baseball, where you've consistently said not to overreact to spring training stats. Trust the process over result.
That's right.
But Spencer Strider made his spring debut today after recovering from internal brace surgery, which cost him nearly all of last season. Strider threw 2 2/3 perfect innings, striking out 6 of the 8 batters he faced. Braves GM Alex Anthopoulos has said Strider won't be on the opening day roster as they bring him back slowly, but that he should debut sometime in April. How will Strider's return to the Braves rotation impact the NL playoff race?
I think it makes them a division winner. I already thought I think the Braves are the best roster in the NL East. I think they're better than the Mets. I think they showed that even last year by playing without a lot of their studs. And now that they're getting a lot of them back, even though they didn't add too many pieces during the offseason. They added Profar, but again, with his kind of injury, we'll see where that plays out. Adding a guy like Spencer Strider back to that rotation is going to be huge for them. You need pitching to win playoff games. You need pitching to win the division. I think Spencer Strider is going to be that guy. So in terms of the playoff race, I think this makes the Padres have to compete with the Mets and the Phillies for a wild card spot more so than the Braves, who will win the NL East.
Number 2.
The Cincinnati Bengals have a reputation for being a fairly cheap organization that doesn't pay their players. They famously did not extend star wide receiver Jamar Chase prior to last year. Well, last night they paid up, making Chase the highest paid non-QB in NFL history. They weren't done there, though. They also signed Chase's running mate, T. Higgins, to a $115 million deal, making him the highest paid wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Do you think it was wise of the Bengals to sink so much money into their wide receiver core?
Well, first of all, I think bringing those guys back to that offense is huge. And the fact that they're under contract for 4 years each, shows that this is their window to go out there and win. Now, the problem is you want to invest a lot of that money in the offensive lines and, D-line. You got to protect Joe Burrow, right? Because Joe Burrow standing upright is their biggest concern. But now it depends to me on the draft. Like if they go out there in the draft and grab a bunch of linemen and get some O linemen and get some D line, some to help fill out the D line and everything like that and build in the trenches and with the youth, I think you can pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins that kind of money. Now, to me, receivers, I've been told this a long time. Receivers are a dime a dozen, but Jamar Chase is at that level, and to get a guy like T. Higgins, who could be a wide receiver 1 somewhere else as a wide receiver 2, I actually don't mind them spending the money on these guys, and they could go out and as long as they can go out and get some linemen in the draft. But we'll see what they do when it comes to the draft. Again, a very cheap organization in the Cincinnati Bengals, but they're building around Joe Burrow. They had that taste of the Super Bowl. They want to get back there. It's a way to do it.
Number 3.
It's been nothing but bad news after bad news for the Mavericks since they inexplicably traded away Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, who got injured in his first game with the Mavs. But some good news lies ahead for them as Davis was assigned to Dallas's G League team so he can begin ramping up his basketball activities. Some people have suggested that the Mavericks should shut AD down after Kyrie Irving's season-ending injury, but they currently hold the final spot in the play-in tournament. Do you think Dallas is making the right move bringing AD back?
Well, I think they're trying to save face as much as possible. I mean, this has been a PR disaster for the Dallas Mavericks. And the only one really celebrating in DFW right now is Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, who for one time in the DFW area, he's not considered the dumbest GM in DFW because of their lack of ability to sign anybody or really make any good moves for the Dallas Cowboys, who have been sitting in purgatory for the last decade plus in the NFL. So I think it's a little bit of save face that they want to show that, we traded for this guy because we think he's going to be better than Luka long term. I don't know why that would be the case. And I think the fact that they have that last spot, you got to show to your fans that you're going for it. Because a couple of years ago, they didn't. A couple of years ago, they decided not to go for that final spot and just kind of punted on the season. And, for me, if you go out there and trade your best young player, would be like for us trading Fernando Tatis Jr., you got a riot on your hands. Everybody in DFW is chanting Fire Nico, even at other sporting events. I mean, an SMU basketball game the other day, they had a Fire Nico chant breakout. So he's already public enemy number one in DFW. They traded Luka Doncic. Their number one guy back in the trade got hurt. Kyrie Irving goes on. He's done for the year with an injury. And then on top of all of that, they're raising ticket prices for next year to talk about the competitiveness that they need in order to compete in the NBA. To me, if they go out there and don't bring AD back and they miss the playoffs, they have nothing to hang their hat on, and it just goes from bad to worse for the Dallas Mavericks. If at least they let AD come back and play and it gets them to a playoff play-in round, you can point to, well, this is why we traded for AD. We're a playoff team, and you can save face, even though I know most Mavericks fans aren't really buying it.
Number 4.
The Players' Championship was delayed due to weather yesterday, forcing the playoff to determine the champion to be played today. Rory McIlroy faced off against J.J. Spaun after he blew a 3-shot lead on the back nine, but needed just one hole to win and become the 8th player to earn multiple Players' Championship titles. How would you grade Rory's performance?
Well, came back and got the title. I mean, you don't really want to make it close, but shout out to San Diego State Aztec J.J. Spaun for making it to the final. Some more great San Diego sports news. I'd probably evaluate he still won, right? So
yep.
Probably a B. Try not to play with your food. I mean, that
process
was
over results, right?
Right. I mean, the process wasn't that great, I guess, but he got the results, so that's why B minus, maybe B minus.
Number 5.
Everyone's favorite Padres rumor, Joey Gallo, has been released by the White Sox after going 2 for 20 in spring training, but he isn't ready to call it a career. Gallo says he's going to try his hand at pitching.
Why?
Can you see any club giving him a look as a pitcher?
Pitcher and a pinch hitter off the bench? Go out there and try to hit a bomb every once in a while? To me, it's like, just hang it up, dude. I mean, it's over. I mean, I guess he wants to try to hang on as much as possible. I can't imagine a team spending money on Joey Gallo to be a pitcher. I don't know. I just don't know why anybody would want to do that. You know what, Padres fans? Maybe we found the answer to that long relief guy. It's Joey Gallo. I mean, how hard does Joey Gallo throw? Gallo could pump it like close to 100 miles an hour. Maybe. But then he would only be like a closer. I've never seen him pitch. The fact that the White Sox don't want him, what team's going to be like, you know what? I think we could make Joey Gallo a pitcher. I really think it's worth the investment. Come on. No. I don't want to see any more Padres rumors of Joey Gallo. And as soon as that guy retires, and no, I mean, it's nothing on Joey Gallo, but as soon as he retires will be a great day for a lot of Padres fans, because then we don't have to think about the rumors of, Padres interested in Joey Gallo. To do what exactly? Maybe he can learn a knuckleball and will save his career a little bit. I mean, enough. Get out of here. Guy in the chat. Joey Gallo is still a better hitter than who is in the 7, 8, 9 spots currently. Give me a break. Give me a break. I'd rather have you go up there than Joey Gallo. How about that? We might run into one. How about this? I got this question asked to me. So Brett Rippon works out at the gym I work out at Fitness Quest 10. He's been working out with Jordan Love. And one of the other guys that works out with him is a pitcher, professional pitcher in the Mexican League right now.
Tell everyone who Brett Rippon is.
Brett Rippon's a backup quarterback in the NFL. My buddy said he was going to step in the box. This guy, said 5 at bats, he doesn't touch one ball. I said he's a professional athlete. I bet you he gets a piece of one. What do you think about that? Interesting topic. Padres went to the San Diego FC game yesterday. Why it's important next. Lunchtime hour. All right, the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Fired up on a Monday. Had a lot to be fired up for if you're a San Diego sports fan. Local colleges have 4 teams going to the Division I NCAA Tournament, San Diego State men's and women's, UCSD men's and women's. Point Loma Nazarene and D2 made the NCAA Tournament, men's and women's. So great for the college basketball crowd in town. We'll talk more about that later on in the 1 o'clock hour. Also, San Diego FC with a 1-1 draw against the Columbus Crew. We had Drake Hills on Friday to preview the game, and that's two teams that play at the same level of aggression when it comes to their attack. And when Columbus Crew scored that one early, San Diego could have rolled over, and they came back, answered later on in the contest, ends up getting a 1-1 draw. And I tell you what, what a great start it's been for San Diego FC to really play on the momentum of a new major league team in town, and they have yet to be beaten. And you could talk about, expansion team, and it's still a long season and everything like that. Don't want to put the cart before the horse. But I tell you what, they're continuing to show that they are for real in a lot of different aspects. Winning 2 games on the road against 2, better clubs in MLS, hosting 2 really good clubs in MLS, and coming out with at least a point. So a lot to be excited about if you're San Diego FC, to the point that, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, where in the latest power rankings on ESPN, MLS has San Diego FC 4th best in the league in the power rankings. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, a lot to be excited about when it comes to San Diego sports. We started off the show with breaking news. That will get you in an excitement real quick. Padres announced their opening day starter. It's going to be Michael King. It's going to be Michael King. Mike Schilt laid out the process of the decision making, and used a little bit of the schedule and the things, the way that the guys were, was playing out during spring training of who would be next in line and everything like that. And Darvish, taking a little bit of time to with fatigue, and he's trying to get back to be ready for opening week, and I think he will. So I don't think it's that big of a problem, but the way everything worked out with Michael King and Dylan Cease and Darvish, it's going to be King. Great honor for him. He was excited about it. He can't wait to pitch in front of the crowd at Petco Park. He mentioned that earlier. And I think that's a big talking point with a lot of different aspects for the Padres. We've talked a lot of Padres baseball, and you haven't, if you missed some of it, you can go back on YouTube and watch at 97 The Fan SD or at B_SURP. You can also find it on the podcast. We have our podcast hours posted for the first 2 hours of the show. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, the Braden Surprenant Show. We're on wherever you get your podcasts at. You can also check us out in the Rewind feature of the Odyssey app. We are streaming live on the Odyssey app as well, and of course on your radio dial. So be able to do that. Give us a like in the YouTube page if you haven't done so already on this particular video. All of you watching live right now, give us the thumbs up button. It's really great for our numbers, so really appreciate that if you go out there and do that. And then be sure to follow me on social media. I've already had a handful of people drop the follow today on Instagram and on X. Big shout out to you guys. We really appreciate it. Courtney, thanks for the follow. Ruin Reader, thanks for the follow. J Slow N, thanks for the follow. Scott Harrison, a Crazy Shark started following you. Jukebox Hero, everybody that is picked up on social media, really appreciate it. Trying to grow that brand as well. We'll have a lot of clips on the show posted on Instagram and TikTok and on Twitter. So thanks again for dropping the follows at B_SURP. I want to talk about what happened this weekend with the San Diego Padres, and not on the field, but what they did in a couple of different aspects. And we'll start with the big one that you saw on social media. You saw it on Fernando's Instagram. You saw it on Joe Musgrove's Instagram and Michael King and all the guys that went out that Manny brought back to San Diego for the game on Saturday night. And you see Xander Bogaerts and Luis Arraez and Manny. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the highlight that was put out of all of them showing up to the game and having a great time, having an absolute great time at San Diego FC and the 1-1 draw against the Columbus Crew. And see Fernando dancing and everything like that. So what happened was, so Manny obviously is a part owner of the squad, and he's sitting up in one of the boxes, and he invited his boys, most of the starters for the San Diego Padres. And if you want to see all the guys on there, you can check it out on the social media pages for a lot of these players. But they flew a private jet to San Diego on Saturday night, landed at Lindbergh Field or San Diego International Airport, cruised over to the game, had a great time at the game, and then the best was on the way back. They're all eating In-N-Out on the plane on the way home, which was super cool. But I love the team building. I mean, that's what's great about this team right now. They don't have to be buddies, and yet they're all out there hanging out. And I don't think it's all just for a photo op either. To see that camaraderie and that team building, right? That really, really builds off of that 44 that Joe Musgrove leads with the San Diego Padres. I mean, this is the leadership. This is the camaraderie. This is the togetherness. This is the culture that you're building in the game. It's some negative people talking about like they had a really good time, and I'll just phrase it as really good time. They're people too, man. I mean, a lot of people do that. Blow off steam and everything like that. It doesn't have to be about baseball all the time. Going out there and doing other things. It's great. I love that they are hanging out together. I love that they're embracing San Diego and the community. I mean, that is it's so awesome to see. You get a lot of players all the time that don't. I don't necessarily think it's necessary. I don't think, a lot of people like to criticize players that don't hang out in San Diego and don't make it their home and everything like that. I don't think it's necessary, but I do think it goes a long way. I think the fact that Joe Musgrove, being a San Diego kid, go out, being a part of this goes a long way. I really do. And so from that standpoint of that community and that sense of, being involved with San Diego and having this tight-knit group, I think it's really building the building blocks and the foundation of what it takes to be a San Diego Padre. So you have that camaraderie standpoint. The other thing that happened over the weekend that I thought was absolutely fantastic was at the Spring Breakout game. And sure, you had, Trevor Hoffman was part of the coaching staff, and A.J. Ellis, some retired veterans, Hoffman being a Hall of Famer, right? And mentoring a lot of the young Padres. But the one that I thought was the best part about all of this was that current player, active player, Joe Musgrove, asked if he could help out and be a part of it and have some teaching points. I think that's great. That is such a great sign of leadership in building this culture and teaching it to the younger players that obviously look up to a guy like Joe Musgrove, who has accomplished so many great things in San Diego as a Padre and so many great things as a big leaguer. Goes out for a mound visit during the game to help a younger pitcher get talked off the ledge when situation was getting out of hand on him. And you look at the picture of Joe talking to that infield and the eye contact he's getting from every one of those players, buying into everything that he's saying, and that respect level for the younger players to a guy like Joe Musgrove, who is obviously one of the leaders of the major league team, is huge. The Padres trading for Joe Musgrove is more than just acquiring a good pitcher. That trade was good for so many different reasons, and he gave him a no-hitter, and he's given this town a lot. But that extra sense of passing it along and being a teacher, we are so blessed to have a guy like Joe Musgrove represent not only the Padres, but the city of San Diego, because it matters to him, and this town matters to him. And this town matters to his family and everything that he has pumped into the city of San Diego. He's so grateful for everything that this community has given to him, and he's given it back. And he's making this Padres culture. The Camp 44 stuff that he does during the offseason. Being a part of this particular venture to San Diego FC. I mean, Joe, if we're lucky, if he's lucky, he might be able to throw a pitch maybe this season. I doubt it. He's not even going to throw a pitch this season in a big league game. If he does, great. I'm not counting on it. But for a lot of veteran players that would be in his particular situation, they wouldn't be this involved in the club, and he's doing it. He's going the extra mile. He's being part of the organization in every aspect possible. He's going to go on the trips. He's going to stay with the team. He's going to be a leader even though he's not playing. You don't have to be an everyday starter or a key player to be a leader. I learned that from one of the guys that I know that has been involved with sports, and his name's Josh. Does a lot of stuff at USD, but he is somebody that served in the military, saw active duty, saw combat, and now goes through and teaches a lot of things about culture and about leadership to organizations as well as military personnel, including the Navy SEALs. And what he told me a couple of weeks ago, even a month ago, that really sticks true is you don't have to be the star player to be a leader. And we know Joe is a star player. I'm not saying he's not. But you don't have to do that to be a leader and have people follow you and have people go in the right direction. I heard this earlier this year at a function about leadership, and I think it's a great definition of leadership. Leadership is taking responsibility of the results, whether it's good or bad. And so Joe puts himself in this position to lead this team and to be committed to this franchise. But more importantly, he's committed to you guys out there. He is committed to the city of San Diego. This means something to him. Growing up here in town, going to Grossmont High School, and being ingrained in the San Diego community. And he wants the Padres to be the highest level they possibly could be. And he's part of this leadership crew. And taking the time to be a part of the spring breakout game when he doesn't have to be, and leading with some coaching and some leadership, that's going to go a long way in the building blocks of this organization down the road. I mentioned it in the first hour of the show about them saying all the right things after Michael King was announced as the opening day starter. This is what gets you to that point. It's little actions like this. It's taking care of the little things, but it's showing that love and passion for the organization you work for. But more importantly, the city of San Diego across the chest that really matters. So blessed to have a guy like Joe Musgrove. Love what he did with the spring breakout. Love the team camaraderie at San Diego FC. That's the best. And I think it's going to go a long way. What Joe Musgrove has done and what the Musgrove family has done in San Diego is great. I mean, his mom couldn't be any nicer to me or the people that they interact with, to the Padres community, the Friar Faithful. Just a wonderful family. It's so blessed to have that part of the organization here in town. So I loved everything about that. I could see a future for Joe Musgrove in coaching, whether that be at the big league level or whether that's coaching at his alma mater at Grossmont High School or anywhere else, when his playing days are done. I mean, the way that he was controlling the room and helping those young guys as a fellow coach, I thought that was awesome. And I love that about this weekend for the San Diego Padres. And again, I love the boys went out and blew off some steam. Who cares? Nobody got hurt. They had a good time. They spent time together. Those are the little things that go a long way for a lot of different organizations and for a lot of good teams. And you don't have to like each other to be a good team, but it definitely goes to the next level. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We want to talk more about the game itself for San Diego FC and where they're at right now in the power rankings. I mean, you could talk as much as you want about how it's a team that is brand new and never know what can happen, and maybe it's just fool's gold, but this start that they have had to the season is a big building block to buying into a lot of fans here in San Diego. They are building off this momentum. Another big point for San Diego over the weekend. We'll talk about that game. We'll get your phone calls and more on the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:22 on a Monday morning. San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant on the Braden Surprenant Show. Really appreciate you guys joining us today. If you haven't done it so already, give us a like on the YouTube page. Really appreciate that. Be sure to follow us on social media. Got a lot of guys and girls following on Instagram and on Twitter. So we appreciate that. We'll pump out more content from the show on there, as well as some other stuff that we do around town. I do a lot of different sports things around town, obviously, with connections to high school football and USD. Got our first football meeting on Wednesday, high school football. So we're already getting into it already. We've been working out for the last couple of months or so, but now we're getting the schedule put together and everything like that. And high school football has turned into a year-round sport for a lot of people. And so we're in it all the time, and should be another fun season for us. And I can't wait to get out there and get the coaching going again. And, obviously with the stuff at USD, they're playing a baseball game right now. They just got underway at noon against Columbia as they finish out a 4-game series. Had 2 games yesterday, 2 4-hour games yesterday. It was a long day at the ballpark. I got there at like 10 in the morning and didn't leave till about 10 at night. But it's not work when you're having fun. So had a blast doing it, and we'll see what the Toreros do as I look at that. But we're talking some San Diego FC. What a great start it's been to the season. They got another draw on Saturday against the Columbus Crew. Columbus went out there early and scored in the 13th minute to take a 1-0 lead going into halftime, and then Vallecaro got a goal in the 69th minute for San Diego to even it up at 1 each, and that's all she wrote for the game. San Diego did not even control the possession the entire time. We talked with Drake on Friday, Drake Hills, who will probably join us again this Friday to talk about San Diego FC and Austin, about the aggressive nature of Columbus and the way that they play at a high level, just like San Diego of wanting to go. So they broke through one time. Defense wasn't in a bad spot, so it wasn't like it was against Real Salt Lake where things kind of got rough there for a little bit. But I'm glad that San Diego FC was able to score a goal for their home crowd. I mean, to go to 2 games and not see a goal would have been rough. So they got their first goal under their belt. The atmosphere, again, was phenomenal at Snapdragon Stadium. I think that's going to continue with the momentum that San Diego FC has put together. But again, Columbus Crew had the possession for the majority of the game, but San Diego put 17 shots up and 7 on goal. That's huge. I mean, keep Pepper in the net. San Diego definitely controlled that in most of the game. We're able to block 5 shots, had 10 corners to only 1 for Columbus. I mean, the aggressiveness of San Diego FC, we heard Mikey Varas talk about it, and we're seeing it. And that's an entertaining level of soccer. I mean, they're not playing keep away after they get a goal. They're not, they're going after it. They want to go get these wins and want to play for 3 points. And so far this year, they have knocked off some pretty impressive teams on the road. In LA Galaxy, who's the reigning champ, and in Real Salt Lake, who's a very good team out in the West. And then at home, they have done a good job too against a solid St. Louis team and a very solid Columbus Crew team. So the San Diego FC is off to a great start. And in doing so, they have put themselves in a really good position when it comes to the rest of the season. I mean, you look at where they're at right now, and even though it's early in the year and they're off to a great start, but you have to acknowledge the fact that they still haven't been beaten yet. They come in as the number 4 team in the latest power rankings, according to ESPN.com in Major League Soccer. Vancouver's number 1, Inter Miami's number 2, Columbus Crew is number 3, who they just played, and then number 4 is San Diego. And although they're missing, Chucky Lozano through injury, league's newest team can be pretty pleased with the start of their inaugural season. San Diego outshot the Crew 17-6, as I mentioned, a 1-1 draw after capitalizing when the Crew went down to 10 players. So they've done a good job. Now they got to be able to keep it up the entire year. But I tell you what, this is paying a lot of dividends as they try to grow in San Diego. Just like we're trying to grow the show here on the Braden Surprenant show, they're trying to grow and build roots here in the San Diego community. And they've done a good job so far. And that momentum is going to carry with as much as this team plays together and wins. And the way that they play exciting soccer is also going to be and go a long way because they do play an exciting brand of soccer. It's attack, 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 attack. I mean, that is like an Americanized version of soccer. And when I mean Americanized, I mean like what Americans love about sports. You know, they're playing it that way. They got to get their next game is against Austin coming up, I think, this weekend. We'll have a full preview of that coming up later on in the week. But San Diego FC, 1-1 draw against Columbus and a good overall performance. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Gwen and Chris have a great lineup in store for their afternoon show. We're going to get a quick preview of that, plus our NCAA tournament man himself. Where's he going? Who are they playing? We'll get more on Aztec women's basketball and Padres news with Chris Ello when he joins us next on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 12:34 on a Monday afternoon. America's finest city, San Diego. A little windy out there today, but not bad as we finish up the last couple of days of winter. We got spring coming up on Thursday, which means we got Padres baseball just around the corner, 10 days away from opening day. And the Padres have announced their opening day starter. Michael King has been announced as the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres, as announced by Mike Shildt. Right at the beginning of the show, we had breaking news to start today's show. And it's going to be a fun season, I think. I'm excited for the Padres to get going. We talked a lot of Padres baseball earlier on in the morning part. So if you want to go check that out, you can go check it out on YouTube and on the Odyssey app. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast version of this show wherever you get your podcasts. The next couple of days, Gwen and Chris are out in Peoria and Matt Scraby, divvying up some great interviews and everything else as they cover the Padres for a couple of days before heading back home and getting us ready for opening day. And joining us right now on the Braden Surprenant show is Chris Ello, the host of Gwen and Chris, as he gets ready for a jam-packed show this afternoon. Chris, what's going on? How's the weather in Arizona?
Perfect day, Braden. Absolutely perfect. And, we're excited to be here. And I tell you what, man, I'm kicking off an exciting week. I mean, I got a little Peoria today, and by the time it's over, I'll be down in Baton Rouge with the Aztec women's basketball team. And you got all these teams in the March Madness and the Padres. This is great. It's a great time to be in sports.
Yeah, great time to be in sports in San Diego, California, as you mentioned with the basketball teams, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. I know you're going to save a lot of this for your show, but your show's jam-packed. I won't let you announce that later on in the interview about everybody that you have scheduled today. But Mike Shildt came out and said that Michael King was going to be the starter on opening day. Is this surprising to you? I found it a little surprising in terms of him over Dylan Cease. But what were your thoughts when you saw that announcement today?
Well, first of all, just so you guys know that I am a great reporter and I have excellent instincts, Braden. Mike Shildt came out to make his morning chat at about 5 minutes to 10. So I walked over there and kind of was on the periphery of the group, around him while he was talking. And he goes, yeah, we're going to have Michael King start on opening day. And I thought to myself, okay, da-da-da-da-da. And then I went to myself, wait a minute. That's kind of cool. That's newsworthy. I better tweet that out. So I just want to let you know I was really on top of the situation. I don't know. I wasn't expecting him to make that kind of an announcement. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, wow, that's kind of actually big news, and he just kind of said it very matter-of-factly, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, I better let people in on this. Everyone was surprised. In fact, Sam Levitt, the great Sammy Levitt, he was actually more prepared than anybody. He had already typed out a tweet that said, Dylan Cease is going to be the opening day starter, says manager Mike Shildt. And all he was going to do was hit send as soon as Mike Shildt announced that. But then, of course, he had to type it back up and change it because it was Michael King. So, yeah, everyone was a little surprised. But, when you think about it, maybe it makes sense. Michael King started the first game of the playoffs. Of course, that was also against the Atlanta Braves. And so, let's come full circle here.
Yeah, very interesting news. Obviously, it is newsworthy. Chris, I'm glad you were Johnny on the spot right there. I didn't know you could fill in as our social media intern this summer. I'm excited for that.
I know. And the funny thing is, it honestly took me like 10 seconds to realize this is important. So it was really funny that I was just kind of standing there. But anyway, yeah, I think Michael King will be good. And I think, Mike Shildt basically said was that it just works out in terms of the rotation, in terms of the times that they're pitching and, throwing on their scheduled days. He had thought about Darvish, but, needed to, schedule him for the third game and talk to Darvish, and Darvish was fine with it. So, then Shildt said, it's kind of down to these two guys, and it just worked out better for Michael King's day to throw. So, Yeah, I don't think it was anything more than that, but it's nice to have options if you're the Padres.
Chris Ello joining us on the Braden Surprenant Show. He's live in Peoria. He's got a great show planned with Matt Scraby and Tony Gwynn Jr. With a lot of great Padres guests that you're going to have to want to tune into at 2 o'clock today after the conclusion of the Braden Surprenant Show. But you spent a lot of time this weekend with Matt Scraby. You went to the soccer game over the weekend for San Diego FC's draw against the Columbus Crew. How was that experience, for you going in there and seeing the environment and everything that came with an MLS team in town since you got to experience that for the first time?
Everybody's going to definitely want to go see a match and be part of it and see what it's all about. I mean, I got a really, first of all, kudos to SDFC. They handled the whole, controversy with the chanting and everything. They handled that perfectly. They came out, before the game and had the coach and a couple of the players in both English and Spanish make announcements down on the field to the fans before the game started. So they handled it right. And, I think hopefully that controversy is behind everybody now. But Braden, I don't know about you, but these, I don't know, 1,000 people who sit behind the goal and do nothing but chant and sing and drum and just go absolutely crazy for the entire match. These people are incredible. They're absolutely unbelievable. I was even asking Scraby or somebody there, I was like, do they have to practice? Like, do they get together and work on this stuff? Because they're so perfectly in unison on everything they do. And so it really is, it's quite a scene. And I'll be honest with you, I was very lucky a couple summers ago. I went to an FC Barcelona match, obviously in Barcelona, and I thought that was the end-all soccer experience. But this was very, very, on par with what that was. So kudos to San Diego and the soccer fans. They really make it exciting. And the game was great. The only thing I didn't like about the game is that these, officials get in the way. They keep taking goals off the board. Every time we score a goal, they seem like they had a problem with it. So, but no, it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm gonna have to go out to a game. It's been tough on the weekends with everything else, but I got to get out there and go watch one of these in person. It seems like a really great time. Talking with Chris Ello from Gwynn and Chris. They got a big jam-packed show that's going to start at 2 o'clock after the conclusion of our show with a lot of Padres guests, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I do want to talk about the Aztecs a little bit. Obviously, with your jam-packed show, it's going to be tough to get all these angles in. I mean, we haven't really talked about the Aztecs a whole lot today, and I had a lot planned on talking about San Diego State. In terms of their seating and everything like that, how are you watching the selection show? It didn't really take didn't take a lot of time. You didn't have to sweat it out, knowing that the Aztecs were in. Do you think that they were in the spot that they deserve? And what do you think their chances are against North Carolina tomorrow?
Well, you hit it right on the head. Everything's right. I mean, it was nice to have them announced very early on. I think they're exactly where I thought they would be, which is in the play-in game. But I think everybody, me included, is surprised they're playing North Carolina, because everybody thought North Carolina wasn't going to make the tournament. That said, and maybe I'm just being, an overly cautious fan, but I'm very concerned about this. And the reason I'm concerned is because everybody, Braden, is saying North Carolina shouldn't be in the tournament, right? It's like, no matter what college analyst comes on, they say, well, I like the draw. They did a great job, except for North Carolina shouldn't be in the tournament. Well, all that is doing is fueling North Carolina, right? They're going to be like, hey, we got to go out and show everybody that we deserve to be here. So the Aztecs are going to be playing a very highly motivated team. And, the Aztecs better make sure they bring it, because I know North Carolina, their record 1-12 against quad one teams, but they took Duke to the wire the other day. And I know Duke didn't have a couple players, but they can play with these teams. You know that. I know that. And it's still North Carolina. So it's going to be a hell of a game. I think it'll be exciting. If the Aztecs beat them, then they can put a notch in their belt that they knocked off one of the true blue bloods of basketball.
Well, Chris, if you remember from last year in the playing game, Colorado State, Virginia was pretty much like that sort of sense, and Colorado State hammered Virginia in Dayton.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get that 2 years in a row, the Mountain West school going against an ACC school to kind of flip it.
Right.
It's a lot easy. It's a lot tougher to talk about it though when it's your team and your alma mater though, Chris. So I understand where you're coming from on that as a cautiously optimistic fan. Women's team is going back to Baton Rouge. We talked about this, off air last week. That's where the last time that they were in the NCAA tournament or when they went to the Sweet 16 or whatever it was that we talked about, they had to go in Baton Rouge. And so you get to go back there for a second time in the NCAA tournament. What was the reaction when you saw that, and how excited was the team?
I know they're excited. I didn't have a chance to be with them yesterday because I was here in Peoria, but yeah, they're excited, and it, they deserve it. They've worked so hard, and it's a great bunch of kids. LSU is going to be a great atmosphere because it's going to be sold out. It'll be crazy. The fans will be into it, and I know that the Aztecs will rise to the occasion. But LSU is, come on, they're the NCAA champs 2 years ago. They've got nothing but McDonald's All-American players. It is going to be an incredible challenge to go into the Pete Maravich Assembly Hall down there at LSU. And you're right. I was there with the team 13 years ago in the first round, and they actually lost that game because they missed like 10 free throws in a row at the end of the game, and they let it get away. And the funny thing is Stacey Terry Hudson, their coach now, was an assistant at LSU in that game. And we've talked about this, and she said, "Yo, you guys should have won the game for sure." So I know she's gonna, tell her kids that nobody thinks they can win, and I think they're 24.5-point underdogs, which I think is honestly a little disrespectful. But they're going to use all that fuel and go in there and try to do what nobody thought they could do last week, which was beat UNLV and win the Mountain West. So it's going to be a great experience. I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you. A lot of people in the YouTube chat are stoked for you to be able to experience that again. And I'm sure you'll have some great Kim Mulkey stories for us when you get back.
I plan on going down there and seeking out Kim Mulkey, see if I can get a little photo with her, and, I'll tell her what a great fan I am of Kim Mulkey. Yeah, she's a bit of a polarizing figure, as you know, but I think the bottom line with Kim Mulkey is that she bleeds women's college basketball. And so I think it's fun to play in a game against, a legend, like Kim Mulkey. So I think it's, it adds to the excitement for the Aztecs. And I think the really good thing for them, as you know, the women's tournament is all on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPN8 or wherever they put it. But the Aztecs game is going to be on the main ESPN channel Saturday night at 7:15 Pacific time. So that's a great chance for these kids to, get that kind of exposure. So that's really cool.
And I'm looking forward to muting that, watching it, and having you on in the background so we can get
the
home call for the women's basketball team for San Diego State. But remarkable that San Diego State men's and women's team both made the tournament. UCSD men's and women's team both made the tournament. Point Loma Nazarene and D2, both men's and women's team made the tournament. So good for all the San Diego schools in town. Chris Ello joins us on the Braden Surprenant show. And last question for you, Chris, just because we're going to set it up for you on your show. You guys got a jam-packed show today, talking with a lot of Padres, throughout the day. Obviously, with your show conflicted some of the, the game being played. You guys got some of these already in the bank. But, how was the first day out there in Peoria with talking to some of the players? And who do we expect to hear this afternoon on the Gwynn and Chris show?
Yeah, I first of all, I want to apologize to all of the Padre players who were standing in line that we just couldn't fit in. I'm kidding. Obviously, they weren't standing in line.
I think they were, Chris. I think that they saw you at the San Diego FC game.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, wait, is that Chris Ello? We got to get in line for this. He's the one
that get on this show.
He's the one that announced to us on Twitter that Michael King's going to be the opening day starter. guy that had the news.
Be on, and we couldn't fit everybody in, but no, we have well, first we had Ruben Niebla, who's always great, and we had Tyler Wade, and we had Gavin Sheets, who's obviously one of the stories of spring training, and then we had Jason Hayward, who I thought was quite entertaining and quite interesting. I hadn't really had a chance to talk to him, but he's first of all, he's really good to talk to. Second of all, I want everybody to pay close attention to the very end of that interview, because I told Jason Hayward an Adam Klug story that has to do with Jason Hayward.
Wow.
And Jason Hayward got the biggest kick out of this Adam Klug story. So Adam, you're gonna get a mention in that interview. But Jason Hayward loved that. And then we finished it off with Jake Cronenworth and Jackson Merrill. So it was a really good day, and I know the fans will enjoy hearing those interviews. First time I've talked to Jackson Merrill, and I turned to Tony halfway through the interview, and I said, I can't believe how impressed I am with this guy. He is so on point. He feels like he's been in the big leagues for 10 years, and so I was really excited to talk to Jackson Merrill, and the Padre fans are going to love the show today, so make sure you tune in at 2.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the Adam Klug story. That's going to be great. Chris, I appreciate
that'll be a highlight.
Chris, I appreciate the time. I know you got to get locked in for a show. Thanks again, and have a fun show this afternoon. And if I don't get to talk to you before you head out to Baton Rouge, have a safe trip, and go shock the world with the women's basketball team.
Yeah, I'll actually be, I think I'll be in studio Wednesday, in between trips. So I'll see you in a couple days, Braden, and appreciate you having me on. And, I'm here whenever you need it.
All right. Thanks again to Chris Ello joining us. Big thanks to you, Chris. Appreciate the time as always. I wonder if that means Chris is going to be at softball on Wednesday. I haven't seen him at softball in a while now. So, but I am interested in this Adam Klug story with Jason Hayward. I don't want to give too much away, but you guys didn't see Adam's natural reaction to when Chris mentioned that. Adam sunk in his chair.
I can tell the story. It's public knowledge.
I know, but we don't really want to tease it, or
well, the tease is his reaction to
the story.
That's
true. That's true. All right, so what do we
make
got?
People more interested to tune in to hear his reaction.
Yeah, there you go. I got to hear this.
Early on when I was dating my wife, who obviously is now my wife, but when we were dating, I was working in Atlanta producing Morning Drive at their sports station. And, obviously I'm from Atlanta, so big Braves fan. And when Jason Hayward made his MLB debut, he was a very highly touted prospect. He was the Padres' top prospect, like Leo DeVries is now. And so when he made his debut for the Braves, it was a gigantic deal. It was something that all fans were looking forward to and expecting, blah, 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 for quite some time. I got us tickets to go to Jason Hayward's debut game. My wife, for those who haven't heard me say, is allergic to being punctual. There's just she is incapable. If you told my wife today,
oh my God,
you have no obligations or responsibilities of any kind tomorrow, nothing with the kids, nothing with work, nothing. All you have to do is be somewhere at 5 p.m. She wouldn't be able to make it there on time. It's just the way she is.
Well, that's like my mom.
So I explained to her how important this game is and how excited we are to see Jason Hayward, blah, blah, blah. Of course, she's late for getting off work or whatever it was that day and me picking her up to take her to the game. So we're driving down to the game. We're in the car together. We're dating early on in our dating life. And the game starts and we're listening on the radio and we're playing the Cubs. And I'm almost kind of hoping that the Cubs have a rally and have a bunch of hits and base runners in the top of the first inning to extend the top of the first before the Braves get to hit. By the time we park in the parking lot, the Braves were up. Jason Hayward had just gotten to bat and we're walking into the stadium and we hear the crowd go absolutely wild. He hit a home run in his very first MLB at bat. And we were not there to see it.
Oh my God.
Because my wife was late.
That's hilarious. I got to hear Jason Hayward's reaction to that.
I've told the story before, and I told it to Matt and Chris the other day, and so I guess Chris relayed that to Jason Hayward.
That's a great story to tell Jason Hayward. That's something you would never think of when he's thinking about his major league debut.
So I was at the game for Jason Hayward's MLB debut the year. He won Rookie of the Year, I believe, but Didn't see the actual home run.
Didn't see the home run. What did he do the rest of the game that you got to see?
Does it matter?
No, not really.
We missed.
It would have sucked
first
more.
at bat.
It would have sucked more if he hit a home run into the seats that you were supposed to be sitting in. That's where that would have made it worse.
Let's see here.
But that is a.
He did not win Rookie of the Year. My
That's rough.
apologies.
What did he debut when he was 20? Is that what it was?
Very young.
I mean, he played with Chipper Jones. I mean, think about that. Like, there's a player on the Padres that played with Chipper Jones, which is, seems crazy to me. That, that kind of 6 degree of separation in Major League Baseball is pretty remarkable. There's not a lot of players that have been able to play.
He was second in Rookie of the Year voting.
And you missed his first career hit, which is his first career home run.
Right.
Because your wife was late, girlfriend at the time. Yeah. Well, it must have been the time that you knew that was going to be my wife. Made me miss the Jason Hayward. I got to hear his reaction to that. You will hear his reaction, Jason Hayward's reaction to Adam's story on Quinn and Chris. Get back to your phone calls. Plus, what's going on with Aztec basketball and the NCAA Tournament. Deeper dive when we come back in the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego Sports Station 97 through the 1 o'clock on a St. Patrick's Day, Monday afternoon. Braden Surprenant show rolling in the final hour of the show.
It's a very drab green you're wearing.
Yeah, it's very drab. It's not very bright.
I got the bright fluorescent lime green going over here.
Yeah. I can see that. That's not too bad.
And neon green shoes.
See, don't you wear those already?
Yeah, but I mean, I wore them today because it's St. Patrick's
I don't
Day.
have a lot of green in general. Green used to be my favorite color as a kid. I've now moved on to blue. I'm like a light blue. Yeah, you got the green shirt for sure. Let's not gouge yourself right now. I can see the green. You got the green laces and everything like that. Yeah, I have a Rose Bowl shirt that's greener that I couldn't find, and then I actually have a brown Padres shirt with some green shamrock deals on it, which I could have worn too, but I didn't really look that hard for it this morning. But I had my Buffalo Trace shirt that's a weird-ish green, and that's what I went with today, just so I don't get pinched by a leprechaun or something, or whatever the deal is. I do like the green hats today for St. Patrick's Day for the Pods. Look pretty good. Michael King was wearing that earlier today, as well as Mike Schilt. And if you're just tuning in and you haven't heard the news, because it was the news that started off our show this morning at 10 a.m., and we're going to talk Aztec basketball here in just a little bit and take a dive into the NCAA tournament, especially into the team that they're playing tomorrow in North Carolina, who a lot of people didn't think deserved to make the tournament. I am one of those people. But before we do that, and kind of reset on the topic of the day, which was the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres, was announced. Here's Mike Schilt talking about that with the media today.
Okay. We'll be our opening day starter. And the reason we got to this, first of all, let's back up. We had three really strong candidates for this. Darvish, obviously, Michael, and Dylan. And when we got the rain today, we decided to push Darvish back. I went to you and I said, this can impact your opening day. And it speaks to the teammate that he is and the culture that we have about selflessness and team. And he said, don't worry about that. Michael or Dylan, let them, one of those two guys be the opening day starter. I'm okay with it. So I really spoke well about Darvish. So now we got a 2-horse race. And then it literally fell into just the way that days have gone. Michael was a little sick early in camp and got his schedule going in a certain way, and Dylan got his schedule going a certain way, and the schedules have worked out really well. But it lines Michael up, who's well deserving of the open day starter. So he's happy. We're excited for him, and it just puts Dylan on a regular rest that we want to be mindful of. Talked to Dylan this morning about it. Listen, there's other opportunities. Both of them can compete for starting in the All-Star game and pitching in Game 1 of the playoffs. So Dylan took it well. Thought, clearly put himself in position for it. But Michael is going to be our open day starter.
How did what he did last year in the postseason, his ability to kind of handle the big stage, how did that kind of impact the way you saw this?
I think it was a body of work of everything. Last year, he got better. I mean, look after April with Michael, and there's a really clear case that he was the Cy Young from May to the end of the season, including the playoffs. So I think that was a huge part of it. And he continues to go about things and pitch well during the spring training, and it looks like he's in a really good place.
It's just one start. The guy it's most important to is the pitcher is making it. It's pretty cool.
Right.
What's it like for you to tell him?
Oh, it's fantastic. We like to celebrate good things. The game's hard, and as much as we can talk and celebrate and enjoy and appreciate, a milestone, and we, and you share that with the player and see that, genuine smile and enthusiasm and appreciation for it is a special moment.
For him, that's a pretty big, leap from where he was this time last year. Still building up, and now opening day started the next year. That's an uncommon kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good to good. It's good to see that reflection. Last year he came in and, a lot of representation of our year last year. Is there's just a lot of uncertainty that got really cleared up, and Michael was part of that, and we lost a known commodity, a multi-generational talent in Juan, and what the return is we get an opening day starter a year later and the guy that helped us contribute to get to and win playoff games. So, yeah, it's a good way of looking at it, yes.
Michael King introduced as the opening day starter earlier today at Padres spring training. We have to tell you, though, we had to get that out there, but be remiss to say today's biggest fan. Got to get to today's biggest fan. Today's biggest fan is Kevin McCarthy from Santee. Kevin McCarthy from Santee, give us a call back within the next 10 minutes at 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973, and you will qualify for a grand prize. 20 tickets for you and your friends for a night in our Odyssey suite at a Padres game later this season. Remember to register your name at 973thefansd.com/biggest fan. Kevin McCarthy. Paging Kevin McCarthy. You're today's biggest fan. Call back next 10 minutes, so to 116 or when we go to break, at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, and you'll qualify for a grand prize, 20 tickets for you and your friends for a night in our Odyssey suite at a Padres game later this season. Remember to register your name at 973thefansd.com/biggest fan. Kevin McCarthy on St. Patrick's Day. Love it. Love it. So, well, I think we might have gotten Kevin to call in, talk some Padres baseball with you, continued on the list of things that happened earlier today that we want to go back to. As the San Diego Padres announced today that Michael King is today's opening starter. Michael King was asked about a couple of things when it comes to being the open day starter, but one of them being the significance of being the open day starter, but also what the camaraderie is like between him and the rest of his rotation. Here's Michael King.
While it is just one game of 162, it would seem like an incredible honor. Everyone gets so geeked up for opening day. Like, well, I assume you hope that you have many of these in your career, but like, what can you talk about why it's such a big deal to start the first game? Or
I mean, it's opening day. It's hard to describe. Everybody gets those jitters. Even on, like, I knew I wasn't pitching opening day last year, and I was still super excited for opening day. It's the start of the baseball season, and everybody looks forward to it. So it's also you want to set the tone for the team. And I told Schulte we'll be 1-0 after that game, and it's that coming into a season and starting 1-0 is just it's something that every team is trying to do, and you got to win each game. And I think winning the first game of the season, it sets the tone for what we're going to do for the rest of the season.
You can speak to the camaraderie of the rotation while also having that competition internally as well.
Oh yeah, and it's such good competition. After every game, every start, we're going over everything that we could have done better, and it's with ourselves. I just talked about where last year Joe Musgrove would come sit next to me after a bad outing, and I respected it because normally you're like, I don't want to talk to that guy. I'll let him cool down. Joe let me get everything off my chest, and then also told me what I could have done better and things that he saw in terms of sequences or mechanics or whatever it is. And so but then the next time out, when I do it well, he's so happy for making that adjustment. And it's the same thing with Dylan Darvish, and it's going to be the same thing with Pavetta and whoever our five is. I think that we have each other's backs, and it's something that we love about each other. We know that it's going to take all of us to win, especially to get to the playoffs out of 162. And then I always say pitching wins championships in the playoffs. So we're going to push ourselves to be the best we can be. And I got nothing but respect for everybody else in that rotation.
Michael King with a lot of great things to say right there about the camaraderie in the starting rotation, especially got the honor to be the opening day starter for the San Diego Padres. If you want to talk more about that, you can give us a phone call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We've had a lot of Padres talk today, and our baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Head to T-Mobile.com and get a great deal on an iPhone 16 Pro. T-Mobile sponsoring our baseball coverage. I do want to mention, and we're going to talk some college basketball here in just a little bit with San Diego State and their game against North Carolina, whether or not North Carolina deserved to be in the NCAA tournament or not. But we're going to be at Dave & Buster's in Mission Valley next Friday as we broadcast live all day long in celebration of the biggest college hoops tournament of the year. Ben Woods kick things off at 6 a.m. I will take over at 10 a.m., followed by Gwen and Chris at 2 p.m. And then we'll wrap up the day with Matt Scraby and the Matt Scraby Show at 6 p.m. There will be a breakfast burrito station, drink specials on mimosas, Bloody Marys, and beer throughout the day, basketball shooting competition, and hourly raffle giveaways. Join us at Dave & Buster's at 2931 Camino del Rio North next Friday for a full day of fun with your favorite fan talk shows. So this Friday, coming up, Dave & Buster's. We will be there all day long with some college basketball on the biggest college basketball tournaments of the year. Always fun to participate in the NCAA tournament. And San Diego has 4 teams in it. 2 in the men's side, 2 in the women's side. San Diego State's men's and women's team both dancing in the NCAA tournament. UCSD men's and women's team dancing in the NCAA tournament. Point Loma Nazarene had their men's and women's basketball team join or invited to the Division II NCAA tournament. So a lot of great hoops going on in town, and we have those games throughout the entire week because San Diego State's play-in game is, in fact, tomorrow against North Carolina. If they win, they will take on Ole Miss on Friday in Milwaukee in the 6-11 matchup at 1:05 p.m. Pacific time, which obviously would be during my show into Gwen and Chris's show on Friday, so it should be a fun time. UCSD is going to open up with Michigan, and for more on the NCAA tournament and some of my thoughts on who got left out and who snuck in and the way the tournament plays out, we will get back with that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show. March Madness talk when we come back on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 1:17 on a Monday afternoon. Braden Surprenant show leading you up to Gwen and Chris. They got a packed show on hand. You don't want to miss their interview with Jason Hayward coming up later about his Major League debut and a certain somebody we know who had an interesting night for his debut, and then them asking Jason Hayward his feelings on said debut. That's going to come up on the Gwen and Chris show. You don't want to miss it. Plus a lot more interviews with Ruben Niebla and a lot of other Padres that are joining that the program, as Tony Gwynn Jr. and Chris Ello and Matt Scraby are out in Peoria for the next couple of days covering spring training before we get you started for opening day. Opening day, which should be a national holiday. And we'll probably talk about that on opening day when we're out there at Baja Ricks to get you ready for first pitch between the Padres and the Atlanta Braves coming up on March 27th. But the Padres announced their opening day started today. It's Michael King. Talked a lot about that earlier today. If you missed any part of the show, you could go back on YouTube and rewind. You could do it on the rewind feature of the Odyssey app. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. All of our hours of the show are put into podcast form wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, Odyssey app, or anywhere else. And there's a lot of other podcast platforms out there that I don't even know about. But we're there. We're on it. So if you missed any of those takes, be sure to give us a listen. We haven't talked too much about March Madness. We'll talk a lot about it tomorrow because San Diego State opens tomorrow for the first four. And they'll be in Dayton, Ohio. And they're taking on North Carolina. That will be tomorrow's game. Wednesday, UCSD women's basketball is in a play-in game against Southern as a 16 seed. Thursday, the UCSD men's basketball team will be playing Michigan in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Friday is a potential game for the Aztecs if they could get through North Carolina against Ole Miss. And then Saturday is San Diego State women's basketball against LSU. And then Sunday, who knows? Now, if UCSD gets through Michigan, they would also play on Saturday. And if the Aztecs can get through their first two games, obviously a difficult task, they would play on Sunday, which means you have college basketball for a team in town every single day this week. Allegedly. Hopefully, if the Aztecs can take care of business against North Carolina, who seems to be a topic of discussion in terms of controversy for making the NCAA tournament across multiple media outlets. I had their metrics. I read them in the first hour. I mean, I can't believe they made the NCAA tournament, but it's not just me. Here's John Rothstein on CBS Sports Network discussing North Carolina getting the final bid to the NCAA tournament, playing in the first four against the Aztecs instead of West Virginia or Indiana.
I say this to Gary a lot, especially the last few days. You're a better man than I am because I'm going to talk about the bad right now, and I'm going to talk about it emphatically. If the criteria for the NCAA tournament in terms of getting an at-large bid is to beat other NCAA tournament teams if you're on the bubble, how in the world could North Carolina get an at-large bid over Indiana and over West Virginia? Indiana, unlike North Carolina, has no quad 3 and 4 losses. Indiana went on the road to East Lansing and beat Michigan State, who's a 2 seed, and beat Purdue on its home floor, who is a 4 seed in this bracket. And Indiana did not get in the NCAA tournament. Then let's talk about West Virginia. West Virginia won a game at Allen Fieldhouse. West Virginia beat Gonzaga on a neutral court. It beat Arizona on a neutral court. It also beat Iowa State. And North Carolina is in over those two teams. I'm just waiting for somebody to say, we got some swamp water to sell you in Florida. That's how I go right now. Now, with that said, I want to bring this in. North Carolina not deserving to be in has no bearing on how the Tar Heels could play in the bracket.
That's right.
Look at VCU in 2011.
I feel like a lot of people have a lot of questions about UNC, but
And that's the thing. I mean, we could talk about all we want. I mean, you could still make the argument that they don't belong in the NCAA tournament, but once you get seeded, it doesn't matter at that point. Anybody can win this thing and get hot at the right time. But the thing with North Carolina, and I've said it a couple of times already, they did it. I mean, Adam Paul in the chat goes like, well, when you play against the top teams and beat the higher seeds, you get it. They didn't beat anybody. They had 3 chances at Duke. They got swept. The only time that they played them tight is when Duke was missing their 2 best players. One of them, who's going to be a lottery pick, who's the best player in college basketball, and Cooper Flagg. They still couldn't beat Duke. No elite wins, no wins versus protected seeds, 0-10 versus the quad 1A, 1-12 against quad 1, 1-10 against at-large field, 0-8 against the net top 20, 1-10 against the net top 40. You have to beat good teams to get in the NCAA tournament. We're talking about an ACC that only got 5 teams in, and the only reason why it's 5 is because North Carolina got the nod. That was a lousy West Coast, Atlantic Coast Conference. A lousy ACC. Very top heavy with Duke. But they're not beating very good teams. They didn't beat the good teams. Despite playing those higher seeds, as pointed out in the chat, those aren't quad 1 wins. So if the whole metrics about making the NCAA tournament is based on winning quad 1 games, which a lot of those schools did that did not make the tournament, and North Carolina gets the benefit for just playing them and not winning, what are we doing? What are we doing? If a mid-major did the same schedule as North Carolina, and they get the benefit for playing a good schedule, but they didn't beat anybody. If UC Irvine did that, or one of the teams that got left out like a Boise State, first of all, nobody would play those two particular schools just because they'd be too afraid to lose to those schools and not get any benefit for it. But if a Boise State and a UC Irvine went out and scheduled 15 quad 1 games against top Power 4 competition and went 1-12 in 13 games against the quad 1, I'm telling you right now, they're not in the NCAA tournament. West Virginia won 6 of those games. They won 6 of those games. North Carolina is just getting credit for getting on the bus. Not even winning. They don't have to win. So what's the point? And we can get into their AD Bubba in a second, but it wasn't just John Rothstein on CBS Sports Network. ESPN thought it was a typo on their graphic.
Have played 11 games against other tournament teams. They have won 2 against UCLA and American. All right, Sean, when the field came out and the brackets were set, let's just start with, like, when you first saw it, what was your overall impression? What stood out?
Well, one of it was that has to be a typo. North Carolina can't possibly be in this NCAA tournament field because they had ample opportunities to improve their resume. The fact that West Virginia is not with 6 quad 1 wins and North Carolina is with 1. And if they thought so highly of the ACC, how is an 18-win Louisville team an 8 seed? So if you don't value the ACC with Louisville, who won 18 games in conference play and had a great non-conference, what you're telling me is North Carolina scheduled its way in because it had the 5th hardest non-conference schedule. The problem is they only won 1 of those games that matter. So, when you talk about 2 wins against the field, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And there are other teams I thought were more rewarded for this. And this is an example of why we don't need to expand the tournament. Because we're looking at this resume and going, yes, this is a tournament, the NCAA tournament team. To me, it's about being elite. This North Carolina team is not elite.
They're not elite. They get the benefit of a schedule that they didn't win the games. I mean, they had a top 5 schedule. Good. But eventually you got to start winning some games. You got to start winning some games. And the fact that they hadn't been unable to do that is a reason why they shouldn't be in over a team like West Virginia. I mean, I didn't even know West Virginia was on the bubble until they got left out. Now, that being said, San Diego State has an opportunity to do what the nation would love to see them do and knock off North Carolina in a game that Colorado State did last year to Virginia. I mean, it's the same conversation we had last year about Colorado State and Virginia. Colorado State, Mountain West school, played Virginia, ACC school that got into the tournament for no reason, that, got the benefit of a strength of schedule but didn't win any games. And then Colorado State blew them out of the building in Dayton. So hopefully San Diego State can do that because North Carolina is San Diego State's opponent coming up tomorrow. Game will be at 6:10 Pacific time. It will be on True TV. North Carolina is a 4.5-point favorite. They see that logo and they get the benefit of the betting. Again, you got guys like Jay Wright saying, well, the ratings for this are going to be great for North Carolina potentially playing Ole Miss or anything like that. I mean, if it's about the TV ratings, what are we even doing? Why even play the games? Just put all the good teams and the Blue Bloods in the tournament and let's just go if we're cared about ratings. But, the more that we go down that path with college athletics, I mean, the more insufferable it becomes. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham on the committee and is the chair of the committee for the NCAA tournament, which I think is already a joke. I mean, you have all of these bracketologists now that are employed by ESPN and everything like that just eat, breathe, sleep NCAA tournaments and bracketology and the metrics and everything like that. We're still letting athletic directors and people that have something to gain from getting their schools into the NCAA tournament making the decisions on who's in and who's not. Bubba Cunningham made an additional $104,000 for the Tar Heels making the NCAA tournament, just so happens to be the chair of March Madness. I understand that he walks out of the room when they talk about North Carolina, but the reality is the fact that they're ingrained in this particular situation is an unfair advantage. That's why every school wants to get their athletic director or their representation as part of the NCAA tournament selection committees for all sports. For all sports. And there's different groups for different sports. I mean, there's a different committee for the baseball tournament. And at a time when Bill McGillis was the athletic director of the University of San Diego, he was on the baseball committee. I mean, there's going to be opportunities for our local colleges to have, representation on these committees. But, I mean, are you kidding me? San Diego State's had way better metrics than North Carolina. But now they got to go out there and show it and play in the game tomorrow. And North Carolina, we'll see what they got. But again, I'd be having this conversation regardless if San Diego State was playing them or not. And the thing is, and I think John Rothstein on CBS Sports Network brought out the great point. It's like, just because we don't think they belong in the tournament doesn't mean they can't win. I mean, they're the whole thing about getting in the tournament is based on your resume. And what it's doing is it's setting a bad precedent for schools to just schedule very difficult and then never win compared to doing what everybody else has to do. So if North Carolina beats San Diego State, that doesn't eliminate the fact that they shouldn't have been in the tournament. They could totally beat San Diego State. But if we're going off resume and everything like that, why are they in? I mean, it goes to the question. I tweeted this out over the weekend. I said, the biggest sham in sports, the biggest sham phrase in sports, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing it. This is the biggest sham in all of sports. I tweeted this quote out over the weekend. I was talking about North Carolina and everything like that and some other teams that also didn't deserve to make the NCAA tournament that probably did. We want the best teams in the tournament is the biggest fraud statement in all of sports. You see it in football with the college football playoff. You see it now in college basketball. They want to expand this tournament to get more Power 4 schools in because they deserve it because they make these metrics up in order for them to be better. And it's just ridiculous instead of just letting it be an even playing field. Do they want to extend the tournament to try to get teams like UC Irvine in and Boise State? No. They're just going to put more schools like Ohio State and Indiana in. And you make a fuss about this, and people are like, well, we're going to laugh when North Carolina beats San Diego State. Well, I don't know if you guys understand. We're going down a path where San Diego State will never be invited to one of these tournaments again if they decide to go with what they want to do and just make it a Power 4 tournament. You guys ready for that conversation? I don't think a lot of people are ready for that conversation. That's why you got to fight it now. I mean, with the ridiculousness of what's going on behind the scenes about seeding this NCAA tournament. I mean, the SEC got 13 out of their 16 teams in. Some schools went 6-12. Look, I understand the conference is good, but when they signed up to be in a super conference, there's got to be schools that don't do well in conference play. They shouldn't be rewarded for the dumb games that they are playing. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And unfortunately, the SEC gets the benefit of the doubt. They also happen to be the conference that's in bed with the ESPN the most. I'm curious to see how this plays out tomorrow. San Diego State can help the college basketball world out by going out there and pulling a Colorado State against Virginia. Now, whether or not that happens remains to be seen. The way San Diego State played last week against Boise State, it's going to be a battle for them against North Carolina and Dayton. But they hadn't done anything all year, North Carolina, and we'll see what they got tomorrow. That's around 6 o'clock. Aztecs with a win will be playing on Friday. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We talked about conversations that I don't think a lot of people are ready to have yet. There's another one that was brought up by Steve Alford, the head coach of Nevada, about college athletics. I think that's a very important topic of discussion that we have to get to when we come back. Plus, do you know ball? I put a poll out earlier today. If you haven't seen it yet, how many brackets should you fill out? I have my answer, but do you know ball? Did you answer correctly? We'll get to that at the end of the show. Gwen and Chris coming up next. Up at 2 o'clock with a packed Padres show. More to come on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 1:38 on a Monday morning. Afternoon. It's afternoon now. Started on a Monday morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody participating. This is the green as I got. If you're on the YouTube, it's kind of a darker green. I tried my best. All right. I don't have a lot of green. I just don't have a lot of green in my wardrobe. So St. Patrick's Day is definitely a day that I don't have an ample supply of green to wear. But this is my best look at that. Braden Surprenant on the Braden Surprenant Show, taking you up to 2 o'clock today. Gwen and Chris have a packed show. They sent me the rundown of their show, and you don't want to miss Gwen and Chris. I mean, we talked a lot about the Padres today, and we'll talk more March Madness tomorrow, obviously with the Aztecs playing tomorrow evening against North Carolina. But the rundown that we got from Gwen and Chris was today they're going to get Ruben Niebla, Jackson Merrill, Jake Cronenworth, Gavin Sheets, Tyler Wade, all on the show. And Jason Hayward is going to be on with Gwen and Chris. And they asked him a very specific question that involves Adam Klug. And you have to stay tuned for his reaction to the said question. That's the tease I'm going to leave for that. It's going to be, you don't want to miss it is what we've been told. So looking forward to being able to hear that interview on Gwen and Chris as they have a great time out in Peoria, Arizona. Again, Padres spring training, 10 days until opening day. Padres announced earlier today that Michael King is their starting pitcher for opening day. Their opening day starter. Talked a lot about that today. If you missed any of it, you can go watch back on YouTube. You could also download the podcast version of our show. It's broken up in hours and a full show once the show is completed. I think the first couple hours are already up. Wherever you get your podcasts. If you missed it, be sure to subscribe. The Braden Surprenant Show on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts, we got it for you. And we want to get those numbers going as much as possible. Again, you can go back on YouTube. All of our live streams stay up, and they get put in a Braden Surprenant Show playlist. A lot of other videos are on there as well. Clips from previous shows, a couple of shorts as well. You can also follow us on social media at B_SURP, at BSURP. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on Twitter. A lot of different posts that we put out there that are also not on the show. To keep the content going when it comes to Padres baseball and everything that involves San Diego sports here in town. If you haven't done so already, really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and help the video get as many likes as possible. It really pushes the live out. We really appreciate it. Comment in the chat. The more you guys comment in the chat, the better it does. So I know you guys have a lot of side conversations in there, but it helps us out. So we really appreciate all of you. I do see most of the chat as I can. I saw a lot of people reach out on social media. Big thanks to you guys with the new follows. And again, if you want to tweet at us at B_SURP, you can, and I'll read some of your tweets about reactions on the show as well. You can also call the show 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I put out a poll to see if you know ball. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So this is your last opportunity to vote in the poll for today. The poll question of the day on social media. Go to 97.3 The Fan SD on Twitter, at 97.3 The Fan SD, or you could go on my Twitter at B_SURP. The poll will be up on there. But today's question about Do You Know Ball is how many brackets are the correct amount to fill out? It's a very controversial subject. Some people say only get one. Some people say 2 max. Other people have a bunch of different ways to go with 2 or more, potentially, right? Maybe even 3. I'll give you my answer coming up at about 1:50 to end the show. But over the weekend, obviously, we had the Mountain West Tournament, and Nevada, part of that Mountain West Tournament, earlier exit, didn't have that great of a year in college basketball. Steve Alford, their head coach, met with the media after, longtime coach at the Power 5 level and everything like that, trying to build the program back up at Nevada, who has had some good years and some bad. But he brought up a very interesting topic in college athletics right now that I think is worth playing about, and I think it's worth talking about. Here's Steve Alford after the game over the weekend in which Nevada was eliminated from the Mountain West tournament?
No, I think you get a blueprint of what, we've been doing it a long time, and we develop a blueprint. Now blueprint changes and evolves. It's 5 years ago, I wasn't, on conversation saying how much you want to be paid. Never thought that would happen in college basketball. And I've always been a big proponent as the game and money has evolved and changed. I've never been one that said I don't believe student athletes shouldn't be paid. But the way it is now is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And it's changed our game. And so you got to adapt. We got to adapt, but every coach, every handshake I have now before games, that's brought up. Every game. Me and the opposing coach are going to talk about portal issues. And, where's academics at? Like, I've talked to my compliance guys. What's APR anymore? You can't control APR. It's a JUCO. You're going to replace 8-9 guys to a roster every year. The travel time that is across the country in these leagues. It makes no sense for that to be our model, but that is our model. So more than us, do we have to evolve as coaches? Yeah, we got to evolve of how now we recruit. Like, it used to be, hey, what's my degree going to look like? What's your facilities look like? What's your relationship with the team look like? Are you there for all practices? Are you a coach that dives into relationships and you're going to care for my child? You might as well throw all that stuff out, because the only question they're concerned about is what they're getting paid in the portal. And to me, that's a terrible model for an 18-year-old, because truth be told, then a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds are raising family members now. And that's not what you go off to college for.
Steve Alford, post-game, after a loss for Nevada, and asked about, really the current situation of college athletics. I love college athletics because of the passion of the local establishments, and it's all across the country, and a lot of small towns and college towns, and seeing the pageantry and everything like that, and the passion playing sports at a high level. And right now, with the way that everything is set up in college athletics, I mean, that is quickly evaporating, and it's turning into a professional sports league. I think, and Steve Alford said at the beginning part of his statement, he was always an advocate for players to get paid. In fact, now they get paid in so many different ways that, they're well compensated for what they do and what they bring. He talks about NIL, and there's only a handful of players that really can use their name, image, and likeness in a sense that it was traditionally brought up for. And in terms of marketing, in terms of, salesmanship for a lot of different products. I mean, there's a handful, but that's it. It's not everybody. And so now in this pay-to-play deal, I mean, it is definitely, it brings a couple of schools that want to spend a lot of money to be able to play at a high level. But at the same time, it is just continually separating the gap between the top and the bottom. So it's not the kids' fault. I mean, it's really everybody involved with college athletics. It let it get to this point, and now we're in a situation where Pandora's box has been opened, and there's not a lot that you can fit back into it. But the current state of college athletics with this, I mean, this is not good news if you are any type of mid-major fan. And I'm talking San Diego State, and I'm talking USD, and I'm talking UCSD. I mean, it's going to be almost impossible to compete with a lot of these particular conferences and everything like that the way this is. Because, you have to get to a point where you're just basically, and Steve Alford said it right, everybody's a junior college now. They're all junior colleges. I mean, even the Power 5 schools are like junior colleges, Power 4 schools. I mean, I went to a Power 4 school, and TCU lost almost everybody in the portal last year to bigger contracts in college basketball, and this year they're lousy. I mean, that's a Power 4 school that could spend money on. They're losing kids. And you look at everything else in college athletics. At one of the coaching clinics not too long ago, one of my friends went out there and listened to California Baptist's head basketball coach talk, before the season started. And he said they had to change their definition of loyalty to try and build the program that they have. And Cal Baptist does a really good job in college basketball. They're trying to get there, competing at a D1 level. A lot of their sports teams are coming on the rise. But they said they changed their definition of loyalty. Their definition of loyalty now is you got to give me all we need is a year out of you. And then if you play good enough where we can pay you to stay, we'll do that. And if you play better and you get a better contract, go ahead. And we're just going to be one and done. I mean, everybody's just going to have a one and done team. I don't know what that means in the long-term thing, but in terms of what we're teaching young people and everything like that, I mean, I thought he brought up a good point too. I mean, there's a lot of players in college athletics that are making really good money now that have never had to really, I mean, they're getting it straight out of the gate. They've gotten it, but before they've even performed at a D1 level, they get it from just being hyped up out of high school before they're even playing. And so they get guaranteed money from this get-go. And then when the career doesn't work out, what's their first job going to be like? I mean, it's just, there's a lot of reasons why these were rules that were in place before. So I don't know about this. It's continuing to go down a weird path. I think you're going to have a brand new team every year for a lot of these schools. I don't think that's good for college athletics. And I think you're going to get to a point where it's just another professional league with basically just the SEC and maybe the Big Ten. Starting to see it with the bids to the NCAA tournament, North Carolina. So I thought he brought up a lot of good points, and the whole clip is on social media. I do want to get to today's poll. How many brackets are the correct amount to fill out, whether or not you know ball or not? To me, my answer is I think you get 2 max. I think if your bracket pool that you're in lets you have 2, you get 2. If not, if you want to go with 1, I think that's fine. But I think it's 2 max. I don't think you could be putting out a bunch of different brackets out there and just be like, oh, look, my bracket did XYZ while you hedge all your bets on all the different brackets. If you want to make a one that you wish happened to be your 3rd bracket, but it doesn't count to anything, sure. Why not? But I think you get 2 max. 43% of you said you only get 1. That was the lead. 33% said 2 max. 2 plus said 22.5. I don't think you guys know ball. I mean, I think the 1, the 1 max, I get it traditional, but I got a lot of, it's almost an impossible task to fill out a bracket. 2 max, you get 2. You get 1. That's your first judgment one, and then you got the second one. That is you put a lot of research and time into it, and that's your second bracket. 2 max, I think, is what you need to do. If you have more than 3 brackets, you got a problem. Let's condense it down. You shouldn't have anything more than 3. 2 max. Do you know ball? 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Want to get out to Martin and Santee, who joins us on the Braden Surprenant show to finish up the show. Martin, what's going on? How's your day?
Going well. Thanks, Braden, and great show. Good start. Well-deserved. Just following up on Coach Alford and his comments, it's the idea that the players see green and that's it. No educational value, as he mentioned. And you think of the tiny, minuscule amount of people that make it to the next level from college. And then also, too, what are they going to have to fall back on? That 20-year-old that blows his ACL in his, junior season, he's done, and it dries up, and education hasn't been a priority or part of the process. It's sad. It's understandable. Back when I was a scholarship athlete, my stipend was $230 a month. So this is a long time ago, but it's just, it's deserved and it's necessary, but it has changed the dynamic of every sport. And frankly, to me, to watch collegiate athletes like this and change every year, it's just sad. So, but anyway, and I just wanted to, comment on that and say, great show. Glad you're here. And just a quick aside, I met the women's basketball coach from San Diego State many years ago at a Padre event, actually. And she is amazing. I would have wanted to play for her. So I'm so happy that the San Diego State women have arrived and women's basketball, and continue the good work. Appreciate all that you do for local San Diego sports, USD, Point Loma, you name it, you do it. So good work and happy St. Patrick's Day.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Really appreciate the phone call. As Martin points out, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime with college athletics. That's kind of crazy. And a big congrats to the 4 teams in town making the D1 NCAA tournaments. 2 men's teams one at San Diego State and UCSD, 2 women's teams, same location. Should be a fun time. That'll do it for me. Big Gwen and Chris show coming up next, talking to all your favorite Padres on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.